Hello and welcome. Come, find a comfortable place here among the archives. I have cleared a table for you in the observatory of the Starpeaks, far above the cloud layer where the air is thin and the silence is absolute. It is quiet here, isn't it? The only sound is the slow, rhythmic grinding of the great orrery turning in the center of the room, tracking the dance of the 12 moons. Pull up that heavy velvet chair. Yes, the one by the hearth. The fire is low, burning with that steady, blue-tipped flame that suggests alchemical wood, designed to last the night without needing to be tended. You can relax. You are safe here. Tonight, we are not speaking of simple history. We are not talking about the rise of kings or the fall of nations, at least not in the way you are used to hearing about them. Those are small things, ripples on the surface of a deep, dark ocean. Tonight, we are going to dive into the ocean itself. We are going to speak of the source code of reality. We are going to speak of the Draconic prophecy. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine the world not as a solid thing, not as stone and water and flesh, but as a stream of data, a cascading waterfall of lights and choices. Imagine that every heartbeat, every sword stroke, every sudden storm is a line of text in a book that is infinite in pages. This is how the Dragons of Argonnessen see our world. To them, you and I are not merely people. We are variables. We are potential energy waiting to be resolved into a kinetic reality. To understand the prophecy, you must first unlearn the idea of destiny. In the common parlance of the 5 nations, a prophecy is a prediction. The king will die on the 3rd day of winter. That is a human limitation. That is a linear thought for a linear life. The Draconic prophecy is not a railroad track leading to a single station. It is a map of 1,000,000 branching paths. It is a logic engine. It says, if the king dies on the 3rd day of winter beneath the light of the full moon's Zerenter, then the kingdom will fracture into 3. But it also says, if the king survives the winter but falls to a traitor's poison in the spring, then the kingdom will unite under a tyrant. It is a series of Boolean operators, if then, else, writ large across the cosmos. And to understand where this logic comes from, we must go back to the very beginning. Before the humans, before the giants, before the goblins. Back to the myth of the progenitors. Relax your shoulders. Let the tension of your day drain away as we drift back to the age of dragons. The lore, as preserved in the earliest Draconic plates, speaks of 3 great entities: Cyberes, the dragon above Eberron, the dragon between, and Kyber, the dragon below. Now, whether these were literal, physical dragons of impossible size or metaphysical concepts given form by later mythologists is a debate for the scholars at Moorgrave University. For the purpose of the prophecy, they are the 3 pillars of existence. Legend tells us that they worked together to discover the prophecy. And this is a crucial distinction. They did not write it. They discovered it. Even to the progenitors, the prophecy was something external, a fundamental truth of the multiverse that they sought to understand. It was the blueprint of potentiality. Cyberes, the source of magic and intellect, saw the prophecy as a tapestry of beautiful complexity, a song of infinite harmonies. Kyber, the source of ambition and entropy, saw it as a weapon, a way to dominate and control. And Eberron, the great mediator, saw it as the natural order, the breathing rhythm of a living universe. We know how the story ends. Kyber turned on Cyberes, tearing him apart. Cyberes' shattered body became the ring of Cyberes, the golden band of dragon shards that circles the world, flashing with the raw power of arcane magic. Eberron, unable to defeat Kyber in force, embraced her, wrapping herself around the dark worm, trapping Kyber within her own coils. Eberron became the world, the crust, the soil, the oceans, and Kyber became the Underdark, the twisted depths within. But what of the prophecy? When the progenitors shattered, the prophecy was not destroyed. It was projected onto the new reality they created. It was shattered like a mirror thrown against a stone floor, its shards scattering across every dimension, every element, and every moment of time. The Dragons of Argonnessen believe that the prophecy is now written in the movement of the cosmos. The ring of Cyberes, flashing and turning above us, is the monitor of this great computer. The movements of the 12 moons are the gears, the shifting of the tectonic plates, the sudden rise of a volcano, the path of a hurricane. These are the lines of the prophecy revealing themselves. Think about the scale of this. When a dragon looks at a mountain range, they don't just see rock, they see a sentence. The angle of the peaks, the mineral composition of the stone, the way the shadow falls during the equinox, it is all legible text. You might wonder, why does this matter to you? Why should a mortal, whose life is a blink of an eye to a dragon, care about these cosmic equations? Because you are part of it. The prophecy is not static. It is a living, breathing reaction to the choices made by the living. The dragons call it the Great Game. The prophecy has nodes, moments in time and space where the probability collapses and a choice must be made. These are the if statements. If the child of winter finds the sword of summer, you, or someone like you, might be that child of winter. You might not know it. You might just think you are an adventurer exploring a ruin, but to the watchers in the chamber, your hand reaching for that sword hilt is the clicking of a tumular lock that will swing the door of history open or slam it shut for another 1,000 years. This is why the dragons watch. This is why they do not rule the world openly. To rule would be to disrupt the experiment. If a dragon flies down and burns a city, they have forced a result. They have smashed the chessboard. They prefer to watch, to nudge, to whisper. They want to see which if becomes a then. But they are not the only ones reading the signs. Deep in the earth, in the coils of Kyber, there are others. The Lords of Dust, the ancient fiends born from the blood of Kyber. They too can read the prophecy. But they do not want to preserve the song. They want to unravel it. They want to find the specific path, the one incredibly unlikely sequence of events That leads to the release of their masters, the overlords. Imagine the prophecy as a complex lock holding the overlords in prison. The combination to that lock is changing every second, shifting with the moons and the tides. The lords of dust are trying to manipulate the world to dial in that combination. The dragons of the chamber are trying to scramble the dial, or to ensure the combination remains incomplete. And you, the mortals, the lesser races, you are the tumblers in that lock. Let us look deeper into how this text is actually read. It is not a book you can open. You cannot go to a library and check out the Draconic Prophecy, Volume 1. It is contextual. A verse of the prophecy might appear as a pattern of frost on a window pane in Canath, but it only has meaning if read while the moon Olarun is full, and the observer is holding a shard of pure obsidian. If those conditions aren't met, the frost is just frost. This creates a reality where everything is significant. A sudden migration of ravens in the Lazar principalities might signal the fall of a house in Sharn. A drought in the Talenta plains might be the precursor to a magical breakthrough in Solargo. The connections are invisible to us, but they are glaringly obvious to a great worm who has spent 4,000 years studying the patterns. The dragons classify the prophecy into different movements or drifts. There is the drift of the sky, which involves the moons and the ring of Cyberes. This is considered the most stable part of the prophecy, dealing with long-term trends and the fate of empires. Then there is the drift of the earth, written in geology and weather. This is more volatile, dealing with disasters and sudden changes. And then there is the drift of flesh. This is the most controversial and terrifying development for the dragons. For tens of thousands of years, the prophecy was written in rock and starlight. But 3,000 years ago, something changed. The prophecy began to write itself on the skin of mortals. The dragon marks. We will discuss the marks in detail later, for they are a subject vast enough to fill their own library. But understand this: when a human manifests a dragon mark, they are not just gaining a magical superpower, they are becoming a living word. They are a walking fragment of the prophecy. When a house Canath heir creates a magic item, or a house Lyrandar pilot steers an airship, they are physically enacting the will of the progenitors. They are the ink flowing across the page. This terrified the dragons. Imagine if the words in your book stood up and started walking around, changing the story on their own. That is what the dragon-marked houses represent to Argonnessen: chaos, unpredictability. So, as we sit here in this observatory, looking up at the ring of Cyberes cutting its golden path across the night sky, remember this: the world you live in is a negotiated truce between three dead gods. Every step you take contributes to the calculation. Are you a variable of Cyberes, adding to the creation and complexity of the world? Or are you a variable of Kyber, working towards its eventual dissolution? The dragons are watching to find out. In the next section, we will leave this observatory and travel in our minds to the continent of Argonnessen itself. We will walk the halls of the great conclave and meet the observers. We will learn about the vast, color-coded factions of dragonkind and how a gold dragon's reading of the prophecy differs from a red dragon's. We will learn why they don't just conquer Corvair and what they are terrified of. The night is young and the fire is warm. Stay with me. The story is just beginning. Let your mind drift away from the high, thin air of the Starpeaks Observatory. Let the cold wind of the mountains fade, replaced by a humid, salt-heavy breeze. We are traveling south and east across the Thunder Sea, past the crashing waves and the storms that rattle the bones of sailors. We are crossing the mist barrier of the Sarin Islands. Visualize the coastline rising out of the fog. This is not a welcoming shore. It is lined with jagged cliffs and massive statues carved from black rock, monuments to dragons, built by the barbarian tribes who worship them. You are standing on the edge of the continent of Argonnessen. This is the land of the worms. This is the only place on Eberron where the prophecy is not just a theory, but the law of the land. To understand the Draconic prophecy, we must try, as best as a mortal mind can, to step into the mind of a dragon. Consider the concept of time. To you, a year is a significant portion of your life. A decade is an era. A century is history. To a dragon of Argonnessen, a century is merely an afternoon nap. A dragon who is 2,000 years old is considered just entering their prime. The ancient worms, the ones who sit on the highest councils, remember the rise of the goblin empire of Draconic. They remember when humanity was nothing but scattered tribes in the Lazar Islands, shivering in the cold. This longevity changes the fundamental nature of how they view cause and effect. When a human sees a problem, like a bandit king raiding villages, they want to solve it now. They draw a sword, they ride out, they fight. They want a resolution before their short life ends. A dragon looks at that same bandit king and consults the prophecy. They see that if the bandit king is allowed to raid for 10 years, his grandson will be born in a refugee camp. And that grandson will go on to discover a magical artifact that prevents a demonic incursion 3 centuries later. To the dragon, the suffering of the villagers today is a necessary mathematical variable in the equation of the future. It is not cruelty, at least not in their eyes. It is calculus. It is the burden of the long view. This creates a detachment that most humanoids find chilling. The dragons of Argonnessen refer to the lesser races: humans, elves, dwarves, orcs, not with malice, but with the same affectionate condescension a gardener might feel towards the bees in their garden. The bees are useful. They pollinate the flowers. But you do not ask the bee for its opinion on the garden's layout, and you certainly do not let the bee decide when to plant the roses. In Argonnessen, the study of the prophecy is organized through a massive, complex social structure known as the conclave. Imagine a cavern so vast it could hold the entire city of Sharn within its walls, with room to spare. The ceiling is lost in shadow, lit only by bioluminescent fungi that mimic the constellations of the night sky. This is the Great Assembly. Here, dragons of all colors, red, gold, blue, silver, brass, white, gather to debate the signs. In the lore of other worlds you might have heard of, metallic dragons are good and chromatic dragons are evil. In Eberron, this is not so simple. While their temperaments differ, they are united by their reverence for the prophecy. A red dragon might be arrogant and quick to anger, and a gold dragon might be imperious and logical. But they are both citizens of the conclave. They both worship the progenitor dragons through the religion of Thur. The religion of Thur teaches that the progenitors, Cyberes, Eberron, and Kyber, are not just creators, but archetypes that every dragon seeks to emulate. The prophecy is the holy scripture of Thur. Within the conclave, there are factions, and understanding them is key to understanding how the prophecy is enacted. First, and most famous to the outside world, is the chamber. You may have heard rumors of the chamber in your travels. They are the interventionists. They are usually the younger dragons, though young here means 500 to 1,000 years old. They believe that the prophecy requires active maintenance. They believe that the if/then statements of the universe need a guiding hand. If the prophecy says, "When the storm breaks over the Tower of Lead, the king must fall," the chamber does not just wait for a storm. They might use weather magic to conjure the storm. They might ensure the king is in the tower. They are the spies and the manipulators. They operate extensively in Corvair, often shapeshifted into humanoid forms. That eccentric gnome banker who funded your last expedition. That elf scholar who pointed you toward a ruin and then vanished. They might be agents of the chamber. They are playing a game of four-dimensional chess, moving pieces across the board to ensure that the specific version of the future they desire comes to pass. They are the active readers, the ones who write notes in the margins of the Book of Fate. But the chamber is often looked down upon by the elders of the conclave. The elders believe in the vast, the great interior of the continent where dragons live in their natural glory. The elders argue that intervening too much risks contaminating the data. If you force the prophecy, is it truly the prophecy? Or is it just your own desire reflected back at you? Then there is the military arm, the light of Cyberes. If the chamber are the spies, the light of Cyberes are the paladins and the executioners. They are an order of martial dragons, mostly gold and silver, but with many others among their ranks. Their duty is to protect the prophecy from those who would shatter it. Sometimes, a node of the prophecy, a person, a place, or an event becomes corrupted. Perhaps a lord of dust is trying to twist a prophecy to release an overlord. Perhaps a mortal wizard has stumbled upon a ritual that could unravel the fabric of the plains. When this happens, the conclave votes and the light of Cyberes descends. They do not negotiate. They do not infiltrate. They arrive as a storm of wings and fire. They are the delete key on the cosmic keyboard. If a city must burn to save the world from a demon overlord, the light of Cyberes will burn it, and they will mourn the necessity while the ashes cool. They view themselves as the immune system of Eberron, purging the infections that threaten the body of the progenitor. But there is a third group, one that speaks in whispers, even among the great worms. The eyes of Crompsys. Crompsys is the draconic archetype of fate, death, and judgment. The eyes are the neutral observers. They do not seek to change the prophecy. They only seek to record its ending. They patrol the massive draconic graveyards in the south of Argonnessen. They study the moment of death, believing that the final exhale of a living creature contains a unique prophetic resonance. While the chamber tries to steer the ship and the light of Cyberes tries to fight off borders, the eyes of Crompsys are simply watching the horizon, calculating exactly when and how the ship will sink. They are terrifying because they do not care. If the prophecy dictates that Argonnessen itself must be destroyed for the multiverse to survive, the eyes of Crompsys would not lift a claw to stop it. They would simply observe, recording the angle of the fall. These factions are constantly locked in a great game. This is not a metaphor. It is a literal social maneuver, a form of debate that spans centuries. Let us look at a practical example of how this works. Imagine a child is born in the slums of Sharn with a strange birthmark. The prophecy says this child might grow up to unite the nations of Corvair, or they might grow up to open a portal to Zoriat, the realm of madness. A dragon of the chamber, let's call him Varth, discovers this. Varth wants the unification outcome, so he adopts a human guise. He becomes a patron of the arts. He arranges for the child to receive a scholarship to Morgrave University. He subtly removes obstacles from the child's path, perhaps bribing a guard to look the other way when the child steals an apple, or arranging for a rival to suffer a convenient accident. Varth is grooming the prophecy. Meanwhile, a dragon of the light of Cyberes, a gold named Oram, sees the same child. Oram sees the risk of Zoriat as too great. The potential for madness outweighs the potential for peace. To Oram, the child is a cancerous cell. The safest path for the world is for that child to be removed from the equation. Oram advocates for a strike. This dispute is brought to the conclave. Varth and Oram debate. They cite the movement of the moons. They cite historical precedents from the Age of Demons. They cite the patterns of the Draconic chart. If Varth wins the debate, the child lives, unaware they are being shepherded by an ancient worm. If Oram wins, the child disappears, another tragic, unexplained death in the lower wards of Sharn. This is the reality of the world you live in. Every major event, the last war, the signing of the Treaty of Thronehold, the rise of the dragon-marked houses, has been debated in these caverns. But there is something that even the dragons fear. There is a shadow that hangs over the conclave, a variable they cannot fully control. The daughter of Kyber. Deep in the pit of 5 sorrows, in the northern wastes of Argonnessen, lies the prison of Tiamat, In Eberron, Tiamat is not a god living in the 9 hells. She is an overlord, a bound spirit of ultimate corruption, the daughter of Kyber. She has the power to corrupt dragons, to turn their minds, to twist the prophecy into madness. The dragons know that the prophecy hints at her release. There are lines of the code that, if activated, would break her chains. The primary goal of the conclave, the one thing that unites the chamber, the light, and the eyes, is to ensure those lines are never read. They are constantly monitoring the ifs that lead to Tiamat. This fear is what keeps them in check. It is why they don't conquer Corvair openly. They fear that the act of conquest itself might be the trigger. They fear that by mobilizing their full power, they might inadvertently fulfill the conditions for Tiamat's release. Hubris, after all, is a classic tragic flaw. So they stay on their continent. They watch. They wait. They hoard knowledge like they hoard gold. And they look to the sky. For the dragons, the sky is the primary display screen of the prophecy. While they can read the earth and the flesh, the sky is the domain of Cyberes, the dragon above. It is the purest source. In the next section, we will turn our own eyes upward. We will step out of the conclave and onto the viewing platforms of the 1,000 steps. We are going to analyze the 12 moons of Eberron. We will look at the first 6, Zaranter, Olarun, Thernder, Air, Dravago, and Nim. We will learn what each moon represents in the Draconic consciousness, how their phases alter the flow of magic, and how a simple lunar eclipse can change the fate of an empire. Take a breath of this salt air. Hear the roar of a dragon in the distance, echoing off the basalt cliffs. The great game is in motion, and the moons are rising. Now, let us turn our gaze downward. We have spent our time among the clouds, walking the high basalt cliffs of Argonnessen, listening to the philosophical debates of the gold and silver worms. It is bright there. It is ordered. It feels safe in a terrifyingly large way. But to truly understand the Draconic prophecy, we cannot only look at the light. We must look at the shadow it casts. Shift your mind's eye now. We are leaving the clean, salt air of the dragon continent. We are traveling northwest, across the bitter waters, to the jagged scar of land known as the Demon Wastes. Here, the sky is often bruised with colors that have no names, and the wind screams through canyons of volcanic glass. Here, in the labyrinth, and deep beneath the earth in the coils of Kyber, dwell the opponents, the adversaries, the lords of dust. If the dragons are the immune system of Eberron, trying to keep the body healthy, the lords of dust are the virus, and they are just as old, just as patient, and just as intelligent as the masters of Argonnessen. To understand their relationship with the prophecy, you must first understand who or what they are. In the Age of Demons, which lasted for millions of years before the first humanoid ever walked the earth, the world was ruled by the overlords. These were not merely powerful kings or gods. They were incarnate concepts of evil and entropy. Rak Tulkesh is not just a demon of war. He is the rage that drives a soldier to kill his brother. Belshazzar is not just a shadow, he is the paranoia that makes a neighbor suspect a neighbor. When the Quattle and the dragons bound these overlords at the end of the Age of Demons, they could not destroy them. You cannot destroy war or paranoia without unmaking the sentient mind. So they were imprisoned. They were bound in the depths of Khyber, held in place by the sacrifice of the Quattle, the force that eventually became the silver flame. But the prophecy is neutral. This is the most terrifying truth about the code of the progenitors. The prophecy does not care about good. It does not care about evil. It only cares about cause and effect. It is a machine, and just as a machine can be used to build a hospital, it can be used to build a guillotine. The dragons call the prophecy the path of creation. The lords of dust view it as the combination to a safe. There are roughly 30 overlords bound in the earth. Each one of them has a specific, incredibly complex release clause written into the prophecy. The dragons spend their lives trying to ensure these clauses are never triggered. The servants of the overlords, the Rakshasa, and other fiends who make up the lords of dust spend their immortal lives trying to trigger them. This is the eternal Cold War of Eberron. It is a war fought not with armies, though armies are often the pawns, but with information, coincidence, and timing. Let us focus on the agents of this war, the Rakshasa. Forget the stories you may have heard of tiger-headed monsters lurking in dungeons waiting to be killed by heroes. The true Rakshasa, the lords of dust, who reside in the hidden city of Ashtakala, are sophisticated, aristocratic, and infinitely cruel. They look at us, the humans, the elves, the dwarves, not as cattle, but as tools. They read the prophecy, but they read it differently than the dragons. The dragons look for the ascendant paths, the threads of probability that lead to stability, to the strengthening of the binding, to the preservation of the status quo. The Rakshasa look for the bleak paths. A bleak path is a thread of the prophecy that leads to entropy. It is a series of events that weakens the binding of an overlord. Consider the overlord known as Sul Kadesh, the keeper of secrets. She is bound beneath the frantic academic energy of the Arcane Congress in Onder. Her power is magic and dangerous knowledge. The prophecy might contain a clause that reads, "When the innocent burns the book of law in the city of towers, and the 3 tears fall on the iron crown, the keeper's whisper shall become a shout." To a normal person, this is gibberish. To a dragon, this is a warning. Make sure no innocent burns a law book in Sharn, the city of towers, while the moons are in a specific alignment. To a Rakshasa serving Sul Kadesh, perhaps the cunning Hekshala, the bloody scribe, this is a to-do list. Hekshala doesn't need to storm Sharn with an army of demons. That would be crude, and it would attract the light of Cyberes. Instead, Hekshala might shapeshift into a librarian. She might befriend a young, disillusioned student, an innocent. She might slowly radicalize this student against the tyranny of the local laws. She might gift the student a rare, flammable book of legal codes. She might wait for the exact moment when the Iron Crown, perhaps a constellation, or a literal crown of a visiting dignitary, is present. And then she hands the student a match. If the student burns the book, the prophecy clicks forward. A tumbler in the lock turns. Sul Kotesh's bonds loosen just a fraction. Maybe a surge of wild magic destroys a city block. Maybe a new, dark spell is suddenly discovered by a wizard who hears whispers in his sleep. The Lords of Dust call this manipulating the skein. They are masters of the butterfly effect. They push a pebble here to start an avalanche there. The scary part is the patience involved. A Rakshasa might spend 200 years orchestrating the fall of a single noble house, just because the prophecy says that the great-granddaughter of that house is the only one who can wield a specific dagger required to cut a specific seal. They will nurture that bloodline, prune it, guide it, and corrupt it, all for a single moment of action 3 centuries later. Let's look at the organization of these manipulators, for it mirrors the Draconic conclave, but in a twisted, mirror image fashion. The ruling body of the Lords of Dust is the Bleak Council, centered in the demon city of Ashtakala. Ashtakala is a place that technically shouldn't exist. It is a city of the age of demons that never fell, protected by powerful wards that even the dragons cannot easily penetrate. It is built of basalt and brass, eternally shrouded in a storm of razor-sharp sand. Inside, the Rakshasa live in decadent luxury, surrounded by the treasures of fallen empires. They debate the prophecy just as the dragons do. But where the dragons debate to save the world, the Bleak Council debates how to end it. Each overlord has a primary agent, a specialized Rakshasa known as a Prakutu, or speaker. Take Mordekesh the Shadow Sword. He is the Prakutu of Rak Tulkesh, the Rage of War. Mordekesh reads the prophecy to find the nodes of conflict. He looks for the ifs that lead to bloodshed. If the king of Breland dies without an heir, if the Siren refugees are denied entry to the Silver Wood, Mordekesh is constantly working to make these ifs a reality. He was likely instrumental in prolonging the last war. While the nations of Corvair thought they were fighting for territory or honor, Mordekesh was there, whispering in the ears of generals, ensuring peace treaties fell through, ensuring supply lines were cut, ensuring the hate remained fresh. Every soldier who died in the last war fueled his master. And here is where the complexity of the prophecy truly shines, the prophetic trap. The dragons know the Lords of Dust are doing this. The Lords of Dust know the dragons are watching. This leads to layers of deception that are mind-boggling to contemplate. Sometimes, a dragon of the chamber might allow a Rakshasa to succeed in a minor goal. Why? Because the dragon sees further down the prophecy. Perhaps the prophecy says, if the Shadow Sword corrupts the general, the city will fall. But if the city falls, the survivor will find the light. The dragon might calculate. We need that survivor to find the light to stop a greater threat in 500 years. Therefore, we must let Mordekesh corrupt the general, we must let the city fall. It is a tragic loss, but a necessary sacrifice for the ultimate checkmate. So, the dragon does nothing. The Rakshasa destroys the city, thinking he has won a victory for the rage of war. But in doing so, he has unwittingly created the hero who will defeat his master's next plot. But wait, the Rakshasa are intelligent too. Perhaps Mordekash knows the dragon wants the survivor to find the light. Perhaps Mordekash corrupts the general, expecting the dragon to stand aside. But then, he ensures the survivor is not a hero, but a broken shell. Or he kills the survivor before they can find the light, effectively short-circuiting the dragon's plan. It is a game of I know that you know that I know, played over millennia, with the lives of mortals as the betting chips. There are, however, rogue elements even here. Not all Lords of Dust are united. They all want to release their specific overlord. But the release of one might hinder the release of another. If Belshazzar, the shadow in the flame, is released, he seeks to turn the world into a realm of paranoia and fear. If Rak-Tulkesh, the rage of war, is released, he seeks a world of constant, bloody combat. These two goals are not perfectly compatible. A world of hidden, paranoid fear is quiet. A world of total war is loud. So sometimes, the Lords of Dust sabotage each other. A servant of the rage of war might tip off a party of adventurers to stop a plot by the servants of the Keeper of Secrets, not because they want to help the adventurers, but because the Keeper's success would delay the rage's release. This fracture is one of the few things that gives the rest of the world a chance. If the Lords of Dust were perfectly unified, the world would have ended long ago. We must also speak of the wild cards in the anti-prophecy. The Draconic prophecy is vast, but it is written in the language of creation, the language of Cyberes and Eberron. The overlords are of Kyber. There are parts of the prophecy that are easier for them to read than for the dragons, and vice versa. The dragons struggle to read the lines written in the deep subterranean earth, the tremors of Kyber. The Lords of Dust struggle to read the lines written in the pure light of the ring of Cyberes. This creates blind spots. The Rakshasa rely heavily on the drift of the earth and the drift of flesh. They love the dragon marks, the drift of flesh, because mortals are corruptible. It is hard to bribe a star or a mountain. It is very easy to bribe a human with a mark of making. This brings us to a chilling realization about the nature of adventuring in Eberron. When you descend into a dungeon to retrieve an ancient artifact, you are almost certainly walking into a prophetic node. Is the artifact a seal keeping an overlord bound? Or is the removal of the artifact the key to keeping them bound? Are the goblins guarding it placed there by the chamber to protect it? Or were they placed there by the Lords of Dust to ensure only a worthy champion could retrieve it? Because the prophecy says the artifact must be wielded by a champion to shatter the seal. When you kill the villain at the end of the campaign, are you saving the day? Or are you fulfilling the line? When the dark priest falls to the blade of the outsider, the final chain shall break. The lords of dust delight in this irony. They love to make heroes the instruments of their own destruction. They love to construct scenarios where the good choice, saving the hostage, killing the bad guy, healing the sick, is actually the trigger for the apocalypse. This is why the dragons of the chamber seem so cold. They might look at a plague ravaging a village and say, "Do not cure it," because they know that curing it fulfills a condition for Katashka, the gatekeeper, the overlord of undeath. To the hero, the dragon is a monster. To the dragon, the hero is a well-meaning fool playing with a loaded crossbow. The Anti-Prophecy is not a separate book. It is the same text, read backward. It is the search for the loopholes, the glitches, the breaking points. It is the study of how to turn a if into a then that ends the game forever. And currently, the Lords of Dust are very active. The last war was a feast for them. The morning, well, that is a subject of much debate, which we will touch on later. But the chaos of the current age, the fractured nations, the rise of new powers, it is a fertile field for the seeds of Kyber. As we prepare to leave the gloomy, twisted atmosphere of the demon wastes, remember this. The enemy is not just the monster in front of you. The enemy is the probability curve. The enemy is the seemingly innocent coincidence. The enemy is the prophecy itself, twisted by those who wish to see the world burn. But to navigate this complex web, both the dragons and the lords of dust look to the same celestial clock. They look to the moons. In the next section, we will begin our two-part deep dive into reading the sky. We will examine the first 6 moons of Eberron. We will learn the specific prophetic domains of Zaranter, Olarun, Thernder, Air, Dravago, and Nim. We will discover why a conspiracy hatched under the full moon of Olarun is destined to succeed, while one hatched under Dravago is destined to fail. The sky is turning. The stars are wheeling overhead. Let us return our eyes to the heavens. Welcome back to the Starpeaks. The air here in the observatory has grown colder as the night has deepened, hasn't it? Pull that blanket tighter around your shoulders. The warmth of the alchemical fire is steady, but the chill of the upper atmosphere is persistent. It is a reminder of the void that hangs just above our heads. We are standing before the great orrery again. Listen to it. Click, whir, hum. It is the heartbeat of the heavens. In the center, the golden globe of Eberron. Around it, the ring of Cyberes, a shimmering band of gold dust. And orbiting in complex, elliptical paths are the 12 moons. To the common folk of Corvair, the moons are simply markers of time. They mark the months. It is the month of Zaranter, they say, meaning it is midwinter. A farmer looks at the moon to know when to plant. A sailor looks at the moon to judge the tide. But to a dragon, the moons are not clocks. They are lenses. Imagine the Draconic prophecy as a beam of pure, blinding white light emanating from the ring of Cyberes. This light contains all potential futures, all data, all truth. But it is too bright to read directly. It would blind you. The moons act as filters. As they orbit, they pass in front of the ring. They refract that prophetic light, breaking it down into specific spectrums of meaning. When the moon Zarenter crosses the ring, it isolates the storm spectrum of the prophecy. When Olarun crosses, it isolates the protection spectrum. The dragons read the prophecy by analyzing these refractions. They calculate the angle of incidence, the exact geometric relationship between a moon, the ring, and a specific point on Eberron. Tonight, we will examine the first 6 moons of the cycle. These correspond to the first 6 months of the standard Galifar calendar. They are the moons of the darkening and the awakening: Zarenter, Olarun, Thernder, Dravago, and Nim. Let us look at the first sphere on the orrery, the one made of pearlescent white marble, streaked with veins of lightning blue gemstone. Zarenter, the storm moon. Zarenter is the closest moon to Eberron, and its influence is the most visceral. It corresponds to the month of midwinter, the time when the world is locked in ice and lashed by gales. In the Draconic consciousness, Zarenter represents unbound energy, violence, and the breaking of stagnation. When a dragon sees Zarenter in its ascendant phase, which means it is shining brightest in the night sky, they know that the prophecy is entering a volatile state. This is the moon of the mark of storm, carried by House Lyrandar. Think of Zarenter as the wild card in the deck. If a prophetic sequence relies on stability, for example, the peace treaty will hold for 100 years. An ascendant Zarenter acts as a destabilizing modifier. It introduces chaos. A reading under Zarenter might look like this. If the lightning strikes the crystal spire while Zarenter is full, the chains of the past will shatter. The dragons of the chamber are particularly wary of Zarenter. High-risk operations are often planned for when Zarenter is new dark, to minimize the chaotic variables. Conversely, the Lords of Dust love this moon. Rak Tulkesh, the Rage of War, finds his bonds slightly looser when the storm moon rides high. It is a time when tempers flare, when diplomacy fails, and when the raw elemental fury of the world bubbles to the surface. Look closer at the orrery. See how Zarenter wobbles slightly in its orbit. The dragons call this the thunderous tremor. It suggests that the prophecy itself is never perfectly stable. There is always a vibration of potential violence waiting to be released. Now, move your eyes to the second sphere. This one is carved from pale orange amber, glowing with a soft, warm light. Olarun, the Sentinel. This moon dominates the sky in late winter. It is the moon of the mark of Sentinel, House Denith. If Zarenter is the sword, Olarun is the shield. In the syntax of the prophecy, Olarun represents preservation, duty, and binding. It is the force that holds things together. When Olarun is ascendant, the if/then statements of the prophecy tend to favor the status quo. It becomes harder to change destiny under the light of Olarun. For the dragons, Olarun is the moon of containment. When the light of Cyberes seeks to reinforce the prison of an overlord, they will wait for a conjunction of Olarun. The light of this moon acts as a metaphysical mortar, hardening the wards. However, there is a melancholy to Olarun. It is associated with the loss of self for the greater good. A prophecy read under Olarun often demands a sacrifice. To save the city, the guardian must stand alone until the dawn. It implies that safety comes at a cost. During the last war, many of the great sieges were broken or held based on the phase of Olarun. The chamber often manipulated generals to set up defensive lines when Olarun was waxing, knowing the prophecy would favor the defender. If you are ever reading the signs and you see a bleak path forming, a path to destruction, you pray for Olarun to rise, to put a stop-loss on the catastrophe. Next, we see a sphere of soft, dove-gray stone, smooth and unblemished, Therndr, the healer's moon. Rising in early spring, Therndr marks the end of the bitter winter and the beginning of the thaw. It is linked to House Jorasco and the mark of healing. But do not mistake healing for simple benevolence. To a dragon, healing is restoration of the pattern. It is the correction of an error. If the world has been wounded physically by war or magically by the morning, Therndr is the force that seeks to scar over that wound. The prophecy under Therndr deals with recovery and cyclical return. It dictates that what was lost must be found or replaced. There is a fascinating and somewhat dark application of this. The dragons believe that healing can sometimes mean excising a tumor. If a civilization becomes corrupt, destroying it so that nature can reclaim the land is, in the eyes of Therndr, a healing act. It is a return to the baseline. When you interpret the prophecy under Therndr, you look for the price of life. Magic that restores life or vitality is potent now, but the prophecy demands balance. If the dead walk again under the gray moon, the living must sleep. This moon governs the flow of positive energy, but also the inevitable debt that such energy incurs. It is the moon of doctors, but also of necromancers who think they are doing the right thing. Now, look at the fourth moon. It is dense, heavy, made of polished steel and silver. It looks less like a celestial body and more like a ball bearing in the machine of the gods. Air, the anvil. This is the moon of mid-spring. It is the moon of the mark of making, House Cannith. Air represents creation, invention, and material transformation. In the prophecy, air is the variable of innovation. It governs the introduction of new things into the world. The dragons watch air with extreme caution. Why? Because innovation breaks patterns. For thousands of years, the world operated on the same level of technology. Swords, bows, basic magic. Then, under the influence of the modern age, we saw the warforged, the airships, the lightning rail. The dragons believed that air was hyperactive during the last century. The prophecy shifted from a script of cycles to a script of escalation. When air is ascendant, it is the best time to craft magic items or forge treaties that create new nations. A prophecy read under air often takes the form. From the iron and the blood, a new soul shall be forged. It was under a unique conjunction of air that the creation forges were first perfected. The chamber debates endlessly whether this was a natural evolution of the prophecy or a manipulation by the lords of dust to create weapons capable of harming the dragons themselves. To read air is to read the blueprint of the future. It asks, what are we building? And will it destroy us? Moving on, we come to a sphere of lavender crystal, swirling with purple and green mists deep within its core. Dravago, the herder's moon. Late spring, the time when the herds are moved to pasture. This moon is linked to House Vadali's and the mark of handling. Dravago represents the control of nature. It is the boundary between the civilized mind and the feral instinct. In the prophecy, Dravago governs the beast within. This is not just about animals. It is about the animalistic nature of all beings. Rage, hunger, fear, lust. Dravago tracks these variables. When Dravago is full, the prophecy suggests that logic will be subservient to instinct. A dragon reading Dravago is looking at the population's morale and primal drives. When the lavender moon is high, the mob will not listen to reason, only to blood. The lords of dust use Dravago to incite riots and panic. The chamber uses Dravago to calm them, or to direct that primal energy toward a productive goal. It is the moon of domestication. The prophecy asks, who is holding the leash? If you are an adventurer and you find yourself hunting a werewolf or a druidic sect that has gone mad, check the phase of Dravago. If it is ascendant, the beast is winning. The line between man and monster is thinnest under this lavender light. Finally, for this session, look at the sixth moon. It is a small, bright sphere of yellow gold, cheerful and radiant. Nim, the crown, early summer. The days are long, the sun is high. Nim is associated with the mark of hospitality, House Galanda. But do not let the cozy association with innkeepers fool you. Nim represents community, connection, and the social contract. It is the moon of civilization itself. To the dragons, Nim tracks the web of relations. No individual exists in a vacuum. The prophecy is a network of connections. If you pull a thread here, a knot tightens there. Nim illuminates these invisible strings. When Nim is ascendant, diplomatic immunity is respected. Guest right is sacred, but it is also a time when betrayals of trust are most devastating to the prophetic web. A prophecy under Nim might read, if the guest is denied bread at the threshold, the house shall fall. This sounds like folklore, but in the Draconic prophecy, it is a metaphysical law. The violation of social bonds creates a prophetic snag, a tangle in the timeline that causes bad luck and ruin to spiral outward. Nim is the moon of the king, not as a tyrant, but as a unifying symbol. It governs the collective unconscious of a nation. The dragons study Nim to understand how the ants, that is us, are organizing the colony. Are we united? Are we fractured? The unity of a nation is a powerful shield against the overlords, and Nim is the gauge of that unity. Take a moment to digest this. we have looked at 6 moons. Zaranter, the storm, the variable of chaos. Olarun, the sentinel, the variable of stability. Thernder, the healer, the variable of recovery. Air, the anvil, the variable of innovation. Dravago, the herder, the variable of instinct. Nim, the crown, the variable of society. Just these 6 variables create a staggering number of permutations. A dragon doesn't just ask, "Is Zaranter full?" They ask, "What is the interaction between a waxing Zaranter, rising chaos, and a waning Olarun, failing protection?" The answer to that equation might be the start of a war. But we are only halfway through the sky. There are 6 more moons, 6 more variables that darken the tone. The moons of the latter half of the year deal with shadow, magic, death, and the void. And there is the matter of the 13th moon, the one you cannot see on this orrery, the one that isn't there. In the next section, we will complete our tour of the heavens. We will examine Larvian, Barakas, Ron, Cypheros, Arith, and Vault. We will discuss the ominous nature of the shadow moon and the freezing void of Vault, and we will speak of Krya, the dream moon, the one that the giants destroyed, and how the dragons read the gap in the sky where it used to be. The gears are turning. The constellation of the dragon is rising. Stay with me. The great wheel turns. Can you feel the vibration in the floorboards? We have watched the first half of the celestial year pass by. We have seen the moons of storm, protection, healing, making, handling, and hospitality. These are the moons of the building. They are active, constructive forces. They represent the gathering of resources and the strengthening of the community. But the year does not end in high summer. The days begin to shorten. The shadows lengthen. The light of the ring of Cyberes must pass through denser, darker lenses. We now enter the drift of the shadow. Look at the 7th sphere on the orrery. It is made of a dull, slitted gemstone, resembling a cat's eye made of moonstone and diamond. Larvian the eye, midsummer. The heat is heavy, the air is still. This is the moon of the mark of detection, House Medani. In the syntax of the Draconic prophecy, Larvian represents revelation, scrutiny, and the uncovering of secrets. If Nim was about building social bonds, Larvian is about examining them for flaws. When Larvian is ascendant, the dragons believe that the veil between the seen and the unseen is thinnest. It is not a time for action. It is a time for forensic analysis. A prophecy reading under Larvian cuts through deception. When the eye opens over the fractured throne, the traitor's heart will beat against the silence. The dragons of the chamber use the phase of Larvian to conduct their investigations. If a dragon suspects that a lord of dust has replaced a key political figure, they will wait until Larvian is full to perform the scrying ritual. The light of Larvian burns away the glamour and the illusion. It is the moon of truth, but often it is a harsh, unwanted truth. It reveals the cracks in the foundation that you hoped weren't there. Next, we have a sphere of bright, sharp silver, etched with lines that look like a navigational chart. Barakas the lantern, late summer. the harvest is approaching. This is the moon of the mark of finding, House Tharashk. Baraka's represents pursuit, clarity, and the hunt, while Larvian reveals what is hidden in front of you. Baraka's guides you to what is lost in the distance. In the prophecy, Baraka's is the vector of destination. It governs the concept of seeking. It is the arrow flying toward the target. When Baraka's is high, the prophecy favors the hunter. The prey cannot hide when the lantern shines on the bog. This moon is dangerous for those who are trying to remain anonymous. If you are an adventurer carrying a cursed artifact that you are trying to hide from the world, the month of Baraka's is your nightmare. The prophetic threads align to make you findable. Coincidences will conspire to reveal your location. A twig snaps, a letter goes astray, a chance meeting in a tavern. The dragons call this the pull of the lantern. It is the universe conspiring to bring 2 points together. Now, look at the ninth sphere. It is a beautiful, deep blue stone, flecked with white like a starry sky. Ron, the book. Early autumn. The air turns crisp. The leaves begin to change. This is the moon of the mark of scribing, House Civis. Ron represents communication, logic, and the binding law. It is the moon of the intellect. In the prophecy, Ron acts as the syntax checker. It governs the rules of engagement. A prophecy read under Ron is often legalistic. It deals with contracts, treaties, and the specific wording of reality. The word given at the crossroads shall bind the giant for an age. The dragons view Ron as the stabilizer of the prophecy. It ensures that words have meaning. Without Ron, the prophecy would just be abstract noise. Ron crystallizes concept into language. Crucially, Ron governs the transmission of information. During the month of Ron, messages travel faster, rumors spread with purpose, and codes are easier to decipher. It is the best time for the chamber to disseminate information or disinformation across the continent. If they want to plant a legend about a hero of the West to prepare the population for a coming conflict, they will start the whispers under the blue light of Ron. We move deeper into the darkening year. The 10th sphere is made of smoky quartz, gray and nebulous. It is hard to see its edges. Cypheros, the shadow, mid-autumn. The nights are longer than the days. This is the moon of the mark of shadow, carried by the elves of House Firelin and House Thureni. Cypheros represents obfuscation, ambiguity, and the unknown. It is the opposite of Larvian. Where the eye reveals, the shadow conceals. In the Draconic prophecy, Cypheros is the variable of doubt. It represents the fog of war. When Cypheros is ascendant, the dragons know that their readings are less reliable. The if/then statements become maybe/perhaps. If the shadow falls on the king, who can say if he wakes? This is the time when the lords of dust are most dangerous. They use the cover of Cypheros to slip past the dragon's surveillance. It is the moon of spies, assassins, and illusions. However, the dragons also use Cypheros. Sometimes, the prophecy dictates that a certain event must remain a mystery for the future to unfold correctly. If the hero knows their destiny too early, they might reject it. So, the chamber uses the influence of Cypheros to cloak the truth, to hide the path until the moment is right. It is the necessary darkness that allows the light to shine later. The 11th sphere is made of red-orange carnelian, glowing like a dying ember. Arith, the gateway, late autumn. The trees are bare. The frost is returning. This is the moon of the mark of passage, House Orion. Arith represents transition, boundaries, and space. It governs the concept of here versus there. In the prophecy, Arith is the variable of movement. It dictates when and where the barriers between things are weak. This applies to physical travel. Teleportation circles are stronger under Arith, but also to metaphysical travel. The door between the worlds swings open when the gateway is red. Arith is closely watched for planar conjunctions. When Arith aligns with a specific plane, say, Furnia, the Sea of Fire, the boundary between Eberron and that plane becomes porous. The dragons read Arith to determine the logistics of the great game. If an army needs to move from Breland to Thrain in 3 days, the prophecy might say it is impossible unless Arith is in a specific phase that warps the travel time. It is the moon of shortcuts and long roads. It reminds us that distance is relative to the observer. And finally, the 12th sphere, a cold, hard sphere of iron and diamond. Vault, the ward, early winter. The cycle closes. The snow returns. This is the moon of the mark of warding, House Kundarak. Vault represents security, closure, and the end. It is the period at the end of the sentence. In the prophecy, Vault is the variable of locking. It seals the events of the year. What has been done is done. The vault is sealed. The winter takes the key. When Vault is ascendant, it is the hardest time to start something new. It is the best time to end something. If the light of Cyberes wants to imprison a demon forever, they will strike under Vault. The binding magic is at its absolute peak. Vault turns the if into a definitive then. It collapses the probability wave into a fixed history. It is the moon of judgment and consequences. So there you have them, 12 moons, 12 lenses. But look at the orrery again. Look at the space between Vault and Zaranter. There is a gap, a mechanical hesitation in the gears, a place where a sphere should be, but isn't. In the ancient giant ruins of Zendrik, there are murals that depict 13 moons. This is the lost moon, Krya. To understand Krya, we must go back 40,000 years to the conflict between the giants of Zendrik and the quarry of Dal Quor, the region of dreams. The giants were masters of magic that even dragons envied. When the quarry invaded Eberron to escape their own turning age, the giants grew desperate. They realized they could not win a conventional war against nightmares that could respawn endlessly, so they targeted the connection. They targeted the moon that served as the lens for Dal Quor's influence on Eberron. We do not know exactly what they did. A spell of cataclysmic proportion. A weapon that broke the sky. but the result is recorded in the silence of the heavens. Krya was destroyed, or thrown so far out of orbit that it vanished from the visible universe. The destruction of Krya severed the coterminous link between Eberron and Dal Quor. It saved the world from the quarry invasion, but it broke the sky. How do dragons read a missing moon? They read the negative space. Think of the prophecy as a melody. Krya was a specific note in that melody. Now, every time that note should be played, there is silence. The dragons call this the gap of the dream. It represents a blind spot in the prophecy. The dragons cannot easily predict events related to the dreaming dark or the inspired, the modern servants of the quarry, because the lens required to read those futures is shattered. When the other moons pass through the space where Krya used to be, they wobble. Their influence becomes erratic. This is known as the time of the void. During this time, the prophecy becomes glitched. Outcomes become random. Madness seeps in. It is a time when the Draconic prophecy fails to account for the irrational, the dream logic, and the nightmares of mortals. For the Lords of Dust, the gap is a frustration, for they cannot use it. But for the dreaming dark, the quarry who eventually found a way back in through the back door of human dreams, the gap is their greatest asset. They operate in the blind spot of the dragons. The dragons of the chamber are terrified of the number 13. 12 moons, 12 dragon marks originally. But then came the mark of death, the 13th mark. Then came the morning, the 13th nation, sire destroyed. They see a pattern of the 13th, attempting to reassert itself. They fear that if the prophecy ever fully acknowledges the number 13 again, it might trigger a restoration of Krya, or worse, a total collapse of the ring of Cyberes. So when you look up at the night sky, do not just count the lights, count the darkness. We have now mapped the immediate heavens. We understand the gears of the clock. But the clock is sitting in a room, and that room is the multiverse. The moons are just the local influence. Beyond the sky of Eberron lie the 13 planes of existence. Shavarath, the battleground, Fernia, the sea of fire, Zoriat, the realm of madness, Mabar, the endless night. These planes do not just orbit, they breathe. They move in and out of alignment with Eberron, becoming coterminous, touching, or remote, distant. In the next section, we will expand our view to the orrery of existence. We will learn how the Draconic prophecy shifts. When Shavarath draws near, war becomes inevitable. We will learn why the dragons dread the approach of Zoriat. Logic breaks down. We will discuss how the planes act as the background radiation that colors every single line of the prophetic code. The moons tell us when things happen. The planes tell us the nature of the reality in which they happen. Rest your eyes for a moment. The star chart is complex, and we are about to add a third dimension to it. We have spoken of the moons, the gears that turn within the sky of Eberron. They are the local timekeepers, the immediate variables that color the day-to-day reading of the prophecy. But if the moons are the weather, the planes are the climate. Step away from the orrery for a moment. Walk with me to the edge of the observatory's balcony. Look out, not just up. Look past the ring of dragon shards, past the moons, into the deep, vibrating velvet of the astral sea. The Draconic prophecy does not exist in a vacuum. Eberron, the dragon between, is suspended in a web of 13 other realities. These are the planes of existence. They are not merely other places you can visit with a high-level spell. They are fundamental concepts of the multiverse given physical form. And they move. Imagine the universe as a massive gyroscope. Eberron is the core. Around it, 13 distinct spheres of reality orbit in complex, multidimensional ellipses. Sometimes they swing close, brushing against the material world. Sometimes they swing far away, retreating into the deep astral void. To a dragon, the position of these planes provides the contextual logic of the prophecy. You cannot read a line of the prophecy accurately without knowing which plane is currently dominant. A line that says the fire shall cleanse the sin means something very different when Furnia, the sea of fire, is touching the world than it does when Rija, the plane of ice, is close. In the first case, it might mean a literal inferno. In the second, it might mean a cold burn, a freezing of assets, or a halting of progress. Let us map this orrery of existence. We categorize the planes by their relationship to the prophetic narrative. First, we have the planes of conflict and law, Shavarath and Donvi. Shavarath, the battleground. This plane is the embodiment of eternal war. Legions of devils, demons, and archons fight forever in a landscape of blades and blood. When Shavarath becomes coterminous close to Eberron, the prophecy shifts toward aggression. The if/then logic becomes binary and violent. Diplomatic nuances fade. The probability of peace treaties holding drops significantly. If you are a dragon of the chamber trying to negotiate a truce between Breland and Thrain, and Shavarath is waxing, you know you are fighting the tide. The cosmic background radiation is screaming fight. Conversely, spells of evocation are potent. Blades are sharper. Tempers are shorter. The prophecy favors the bold, the rash, and the violent. Donvi, the perfect order, the opposite of the chaos of war, is the stillness of law. Donvi is a realm of infinite geometric perfection, inhabited by modrons and inevitables. When Donvi is coterminous, the prophecy becomes rigid. It favors structure. It favors the status quo. If the law is written, then it shall be obeyed. This is a terrible time for revolutions. If the prophecy hints at the overthrow of a tyrant, it is unlikely to happen when Donvi is close. The universe itself is enforcing authority. The dragons know that under Donvi, the letter of the law is more powerful than the spirit. Next, consider the planes of energy, Furnia and Rija. Furnia, the sea of fire. This is not just fire. It is industry, passion, and transformation. When Furnia is coterminous, the prophecy accelerates. Reactions happen faster. A plot that should take 10 years might unfold in 10 days. It is a time of high volatility. The dragons read Furnia as a multiplier of passion. Love affairs, artistic breakthroughs, and violent rages all spike. The prophecy becomes a story of dramatic, sudden change. Rija, the plane of ice, stasis, preservation, the freeze. When Rija is coterminous, the prophecy slows down. Events become sluggish. If the seed is planted, it sleeps. This is the time to bury secrets. If the chamber wants to hide a dangerous artifact, they do it when Rija is close, because the prophecy favors things staying where they are put. It is the cosmic pause button. Then we have the planes of life and death, Irian, Mabar, and Dalar. Irian, the eternal day, the source of positive energy, light, life, beginnings. When Irian is coterminous, healing magic is maximized, but prophetically, it represents hope and genesis. New ideas take root easily. Children born under a coterminous Irian are said to have bright destinies, lines of probability that trend toward greatness. The prophecy favors the underdog, the startup, the new venture. Mabar, the endless night, the source of negative energy, entropy, shadow, hunger. When Mabar is coterminous, the shadows lengthen. The prophecy turns bleak. Probability collapses toward failure. Crops wither. Plagues spread. The lords of dust love Mabar. They time their darker rituals for these phases. If the prophecy says, the kingdom falls when the light fails, that is a direct reference to a Mabar convergence. It is the gravity of the grave, pulling everything down. Dalar, the realm of the dead. This is not hell, it is purgatory. It is the place of apathy and fading memories. When Dalar is coterminous, the prophecy becomes numb. Ambition falters. People just stop caring. Great crusades run out of steam. It is the wet blanket of the multiverse. The dragons know that trying to incite great change during a Dalar phase is like trying to light a fire in a vacuum. The fuel is there, but the spark just won't catch. Now, the planes of nature and spirit, Lamania and the Lannies. Lamania, the twilight forest, the realm of raw, primal nature. When Lamania is coterminous, civilization feels fragile. Vines grow over walls overnight. Animals become bolder. The prophecy shifts to primal logic. The laws of men matter less. The laws of the hunt matter more. Survival of the fittest becomes the dominant clause in the code. The Lannies, the fairy court. This is a fascinating one for the dragons. The Lannies is the realm of stories, archetypes, and narrative logic. When the Lannies is coterminous, the prophecy becomes poetic. Irony becomes a physical force. The evil stepmother will inevitably be defeated by the innocent child. The arrogant prince will inevitably be humbled. The dragons hate this. They are creatures of intellect and calculus. The Lannies introduces narrative causality. It makes the world run on storybook logic rather than physics. Under the Lannies, a ragtag group of adventurers with the power of friendship actually has a statistical advantage over a well-funded army. It defies the math, but it fits the story. And finally, the problem children Kithri, Zoriat, and Dal Quor. Kithri, the churning chaos, pure, unadulterated chaos. Matter changing state constantly. When Kithri is coterminous, the prophecy is unreadable. The variables change too fast to track. If X, then Y becomes if X, then blue, or perhaps fish. The dragons usually withdraw during a Kithri phase. They observe, but they do not bet. It is the randomness of the roll. Zoriat, the realm of madness, the home of the Daelker. It is alien, incomprehensible geometry. Crucially, Zoriat has been remote blocked for thousands of years, thanks to the dimensional seals created by the gatekeeper druids. But even from a distance, it exerts pressure. If Zoriat were to become coterminous again, the prophecy would not just be unreadable, it would be rewritten. Zoriat represents the anti-truth. It is the virus that corrupts the operating system. The dragons fear Zoriat above all else because it doesn't play the great game, it flips the table. Dal Quor, the region of dreams. As we discussed with the moon Krya, this plane was severed from Eberron by the giants. It is permanently remote. This creates the phantom pain of the prophecy. Because Dal Quor cannot touch Eberron naturally, the prophecy lacks a dream logic component. It makes the world harder, more literal. The quarry have to hack their way in through psionics, and the dreaming dark, because the natural door is bricked up. The dragons monitor the distance of Dal Quor obsessively. If it ever starts to move closer, it means the giant's ancient magic is failing. It means the nightmare is returning. Now, understand that these planes are not just orbiting in the sky. Their influence pools in specific places on the ground. These are manifest zones. Sharn, the city of towers, sits in a manifest zone of Serenia, the azure sky. Serenia is the plane of peace and floating. This is the only reason the towers of Sharn can stand so high. The gravity is literally lighter there, and the magic of flight is enhanced. Prophetically, this means Sharn is a node of levity. It is a place where things rise, ambitions, buildings, prices, but go to the gloaming in the Eldine reaches. That is a manifest zone of Mabar. There, the prophecy always trends toward decay. You cannot build a lasting empire in a Mabar zone. The entropy is too high. So, when a dragon looks at you, an adventurer standing in a specific spot, at a specific time, they are calculating a vector sum of all these forces. They see you are standing in a zone of Shavarath aggression. The moon Zaranter storm is rising. The plane Fernia fire is approaching coterminus. The dragon thinks, this entity is a walking bomb. The probability of them starting a war in the next 24 hours is 99.8%. And they might decide to defuse you. Or they might decide to point you at their enemy. This celestial clockwork, the moons and the planes, was the state of the prophecy for the first few million years of history. It was a clean system. Complicated, yes, but predictable. It was a system of cycles. The planes orbit, the moons orbit. History repeats. But then, something happened. Something that shouldn't have happened. the prophecy began to change its medium. It stopped being content with writing on the sky and the stones. It decided to write on people. It created the Draconic prophecy of the flesh. It created the dragon marks. This was the moment the dragons panicked. It is one thing to read the weather. It is another thing entirely when the weather starts having opinions and casting spells. In the next section, we are going to leave the heavens and come down to the surface. We are going to look at your skin. We are going to talk about the living prophecy, dragon marks. We will discuss why the dragons were terrified when the first marks appeared on elves and humans. We will discuss why there are 12 or 13 marks. We will reframe the dragon-marked houses not as businesses, but as unwitting armies of the prophecy, marching toward a destiny they do not understand. The stars are beautiful, but they are cold. The blood is warm and the ink is moving. Welcome back. We have spent a long time looking up. Our necks are stiff from staring at the orrery, tracking the cold, mathematical precision of the moons and the planes. We have spoken of the prophecy as something distant, something written in the movement of celestial spheres and the grinding of tectonic plates. It feels vast, doesn't it? It feels impersonal, like a thunderstorm or a tidal wave. It is something that happens to you, not something that is of you. But now, I want you to look at your own hand. Turn it over. Look at the veins beneath the skin, the faint pulse of blue blood against the wrist. About 3,000 years ago, a mere blink of an eye in the timeline of a dragon, the prophecy changed its mind. It decided that the sky was no longer enough paper for its story. It decided to come down. It decided to write itself on the flesh of the lesser races. This is the drift of flesh. This is the phenomenon of the dragon marks. To understand the sheer horror and confusion this caused in Argonnessen, you have to understand the dragon's ego. They believe they are the children of the progenitors. They are the chosen people. They are the guardians of the prophecy. For millions of years, they watched the signs. And then, suddenly, the ants started glowing. Imagine you are a master calligrapher. You have spent your life studying the most sacred text in the world. And one day, you wake up and find that the ink has vanished from the page and reappeared on the back of a stray dog running through the street. That is how the dragons felt when the first dragon marks appeared on the elves of Eberron and the humans of Corvair. It started with the mark of shadow and the mark of death. Then the mark of healing on the halflings. The mark of scribing on the gnomes. The conclave nearly went to war over this. One faction, the Dominion of the Unblemished, argued that this was a corruption, a virus of Kyber that needed to be burned out. They proposed the total extinction of the humanoid races to clean the slate. Another faction, which eventually became the dominant voice in the chamber, argued for observation. They posited a terrifying theory. The prophecy is evolving. The prophecy realized that rocks and stars are predictable. They follow laws of physics. But mortals are chaotic. Mortals have free will. By embedding itself in the bloodlines of mortals, the prophecy unlocked a new level of computational complexity. It became a living algorithm. Let us analyze a dragon mark, not as a game mechanic, not as a way to cast cure light wounds or feather fall, but as a piece of text. If you look closely at a manifest dragon mark, you will see it is not a tattoo. It is not ink sitting on top of the skin. It is deep within the dermal layers. It glows with a faint, shimmering light that matches the color of the ring of cyberies, blues, purples, violets. It warms to the touch when active. The lines of the mark are not random. They are fractals. They mimic the patterns of the coastlines of Eberron, the flow of the rivers, and the ley lines of magic. A dragon mark is a microcosm of the world map stamped onto a person. When a member of House Jorasco activates their mark of healing, they are not just using magic. They are channeling the drift of vitality. They are pulling on a thread of the prophecy that says, "This flesh shall be whole." When a pilot of House Lyrandar grabs the wheel of an airship, their mark of storm connects with the elemental ring. They become a node. The prophecy flows through them into the ship. If the wind strikes the sails, then the ship shall ride the current. The bearer of the mark is a living, if slash then gate. This changes everything about how the dragons play the great game. Before the marks, if a dragon wanted to influence the weather, they had to wait for the moon Saranter to rise, or perform a massive ritual. Now they just need to bribe a guy named Delirandar. The dragon-marked houses think they are businesses. They think they are guilds of commerce. House Cannith thinks it builds things. House Civis thinks it sends messages. The dragons know the truth. The houses are not businesses. They are processors. Think of the 12 dragon-marked houses as 12 distinct subroutines running in the world computer. The mark of making House Cannith is the subroutine of innovation. It constantly introduces new variables, magic items, warforged into the world to keep the prophecy fresh. The mark of Sentinel House Denith is the subroutine of defense. It ensures that key figures survive long enough to fulfill their destiny. The mark of scribing House Civis is the subroutine of data transmission. It ensures that information travels fast enough to trigger the right reactions across the continent. The mark of finding House Tharashk is the subroutine of location. It ensures that the hidden things, dragon shards, relics, are found when the timeline requires them. The dragons watch the strength of the houses closely. If House Cannith suddenly becomes too powerful, as it did before the morning, the dragons worry that the innovation variable is overwriting the stability variable. But there is a deeper, more metaphysical layer to this. Why these races? Why elves, humans, dwarves, halflings, gnomes, half-orcs, and half-elves? Why not the orcs, the original druids? Why not the goblins, the heirs of Dakon? Why not the dragons themselves? The prevailing theory in the library of Kornberg, likely planted there by the chamber, is that these races were chosen because they are unbound. The dragons are bound by their nature. A red dragon is inherently driven by certain impulses. The orcs are bound by their ancient duty to the gatekeepers. The goblins are bound by the rigidity of the Draconic caste system, the concept of Mut and Acha. But humans are messy. Humans are adaptable. Humans change their minds every 10 minutes. This makes them the perfect chaotic substrate for the prophecy. The prophecy needs that chaos to explore all possible futures. Let's talk about the apex marks. You know them as the Cyberese marks. Occasionally, a member of a dragon-marked house manifests a mark of immense size and power, covering their entire torso or face. This is not just a stronger spell. To a dragon, a Cyberese mark is a command line. A normal dragon mark is a sentence. A Cyberese mark is a shout. It indicates that the bearer is a focal point of history. The prophecy has pooled a massive amount of probability into this one single vessel. When a Cyberese mark appears, the chamber goes on high alert. The light of Cyberese sharpens its claws because a person with a Cyberese mark can single-handedly alter the course of an age. They are the chosen ones of the code. If they turn left, the world enters a golden age. If they turn right, the world enters 1,000 years of darkness. The dragons will often try to acquire these individuals. They will swoop in, kidnapping them or hiring them, taking them to Argonnessen to be studied or guided. If guidance fails, well, the light of Cyberese removes the variable, but there is a dark side to the flesh. If the dragon marks are the writing of Cyberese creation, then what happens when Kyber corruption tries to pick up the pen? Aberrant marks. For centuries, the houses have hunted those with aberrant marks. They call them dangerous, uncontrolled, mad. They say the marks are a threat to society. The dragons have a different view. They call these the glitch. An aberrant mark is not just a bad mark. It is a corrupted line of code. It is the prophecy trying to write something that reality rejects. Or it is the lords of dust trying to hack the system. While a true dragon mark is constructive, it heals, it makes, it protects, it travels. An aberrant mark is almost always destructive. It rots, it burns, it breaks, it freezes. It is the language of unmaking. The existence of aberrant marks suggests that the struggle between the progenitors is literally being fought in the DNA of the people of Corvair. Every time a child is born with an aberrant mark, it is a small victory for Kyber. This leads us to the terrifying realization of what the War of the Mark actually was. History tells you the War of the Mark was a crusade by the 12 houses to purify their bloodlines and destroy the aberrant mixed breeds. Lord Hala's Tarkanan and the Lady of the Plague were the villains, monsters who destroyed Sharn. But look at it through the eyes of the prophecy. The War of the Mark was a debugging process. The system, the 12 houses, attacked the virus, the aberrant marks, and the dragons, they watched. They let it happen. In fact, they likely encouraged it. The chamber would have whispered in the ears of the house lords, stoking their paranoia. These mixed marks are impure. They are dangerous. You must cleanse them. Why? Because the dragons feared that if the aberrant marks became too numerous, or if they organized, they would create a bleak prophecy, a collective narrative that would lead to the release of the overlords. Hala's Tarkanan wasn't just a rebel leader. He was a potential avatar of destruction. His earthquakes were not just spells, they were him shaking the foundations of the prophecy itself. And then there is the greatest taboo of all, the event that proved the dragon's fears were justified. The moment when the prophecy tried to create a bridge between life and death, the mark of death. You cannot speak of the Draconic prophecy without speaking of the House of Val. It is the missing piece of the puzzle. The 13th mark. We are taught that the mark of death is gone, eradicated, but the prophecy does not simply forget a line of code. You can burn the book, but the words remain in the mind of the author. The mark of death was the prophecy of the end. It governed the transition between the living and the dead, and it appeared on the elves, the race obsessed with avoiding death through the undying court. The Dragons of Argonnessen and the elves of Eberron, two ancient enemies, united to destroy the House of Val. Why? What terrified them so much that they put aside thousands of years of hatred to commit genocide? It wasn't just necromancy. It was the hybrid, Erandi's Val, the half-dragon, the child of a green dragon and an elf of the Mark of Death. This was the ultimate violation. The prophecy of the flesh, elf, merging with the guardian of the prophecy, dragon. To the conclave, this was not a child. This was a singularity, a being that was both the reader and the written, a being that could potentially rewrite the prophecy at will, without waiting for the moons or the planes. A being with the power of a progenitor. So they shattered the house. They hunted down every carrier of the mark. They tried to wipe the ink off the skin of the world. But did they succeed? Erandi's Val is a lick. She is undead. She has lost her mark because the marks require living flesh to function. The code is broken, but the potential remains. The prophecy still has a slot for the 13th mark. It is like a missing tooth. The tongue keeps poking at the empty space. The dragons are terrified that the mark of death will return. They watch the skies for the signs of the crimson eclipse, the specific alignment that might herald the re-emergence of the death mark. And they watch you, the adventurers. Because who finds the lost things? Who goes into the deep places? Who stumbles upon the ancient bloodlines? Every time you take a level in a Dragon Mark air class, every time you manifest a generic aberrant feat, the dragons are updating their charts. They are asking, is the ink returning? The dragon marks are the living, breathing proof that the prophecy is not finished. The world is not a completed painting. It is a canvas that is still being painted, and you are the brush strokes. This brings us to a chilling question. If the prophecy can appear on skin, and if the dragons destroyed the mark of death to stop a specific future, what happens when the prophecy decides it doesn't need the other 12? What happens when the narrative utility of House Cannith or House Orion is finished? Would the dragons orchestrate the fall of another house? Some theorists believe that is exactly what happened to Sire, that the destruction of the nation of Sire was actually a targeted strike against the seat of House Cannith's power, an attempt to prune a branch of the prophecy that had grown too wild. We will explore the morning in due time, but first, we must look at the immediate consequence of the broken prophecy. We must look at what happened when the dragons and elves tried to edit the script by force. We must look at the severed thread. In the next section, we will delve into the War of the Mark and the fall of Val, specifically through the lens of prophetic damage. We will discuss how removing a piece of the board destabilized the great game. We will ask, did killing the Mark of Death actually make the world safer? Or did it break the seal that was holding back something even worse? The skin itches. The mark burns. The story continues. Sit back. Let the warmth of the fire settle into your bones. We have talked about the sky, and we have talked about the blood. Now, we must talk about the scar. Imagine a tapestry, a magnificent, sprawling weave of 1 billion threads, depicting the history of the world. Now, imagine someone takes a pair of shears and cuts a specific color of thread out of the entire cloth. They pull it, rip it, unravel it until it is gone. Does the tapestry look the same? Or does it bunch up? Does it fray at the edges? Do the other threads have to stretch tight to cover the hole? This is the story of the severed thread. This is the story of the House of Val and the War of the Mark. To the average citizen of the 5 nations, the extermination of the House of Val is ancient history, a footnote in the Elven archives. They are told that the House of Val practiced dark arts, that they turned to necromancy, and that the Undying Court and the Dragons of Argonnessen, in a rare moment of unity, destroyed them to save the world. That is the sanitized version. That is the version written by the victors. Here, in the Starpeaks, we look at the raw data. And the data suggests that the House of Val was not destroyed because it was evil. It was destroyed because it was prophetically destabilizing. We touched on this earlier, but let us go deeper. The crisis began with a union. An elf of the Mark of Death, the matriarch of House Val, lay with a green dragon, the Emerald Claw. This was not a simple romance. This was a metaphysical experiment. Remember, the dragons view themselves as the guardians of the prophecy. They view the lesser races as the game pieces. For a player, a dragon to mate with a piece, an elf, is a violation of the rules. But more importantly, the offspring, Erandis Val, was a hybrid of 2 different drifts of the prophecy. She carried the drift of flesh, the mark, and the drift of spirit, the draconic blood. When Erandis was born, the draconic prophecy screamed. The conclave recorded readings that were off the charts. The if/then statements began to loop. The probability clouds collapsed. The dragons feared that Erandis Val was not just a child, but a living key. A key that could unlock the overlords, perhaps. A key that could revive the progenitors. Maybe a key that could rewrite the prophecy itself. effectively giving a single entity admin access to reality. This was the fear that froze the blood of the great worms. So, the order was given: delete. The scouring of House Val was absolute. It was not a war, it was an erasure. Every elf carrying the mark of death was hunted down. The dragons burned the estates. The undying court severed the spiritual lines. They didn't just want to kill the people, they wanted to kill the potential for the mark to ever appear again. They wanted to edit the code of the universe by forcibly removing a variable. But here is the thing about prophecy. It abhors a vacuum. When you remove a major support beam from a building, the weight shifts to the other beams. When the mark of death was removed, the prophetic weight shifted to the remaining 12 marks. Many Draconic scholars believe that the War of the Mark, which occurred roughly 1,500 years ago, was the direct result of this imbalance. The War of the Mark is often framed as a conflict between the pure marks, the 12, and the aberrant marks, the twisted. But look closer. The aberrant marks surged in power after the destruction of Val. It was as if the prophecy, denied its 13th outlet, tried to force its way out through new, unstable channels. The energy that should have flowed through the mark of death began to leak into the general population, manifesting as destructive, uncontrollable powers. Hallas Tarkanan and the Lady of the Plague, the leaders of the aberrant side, they were not just terrorists. They were tragic figures. They were the symptoms of a broken system. The Lady of the Plague had the power to control disease and vermin. Hallas Tarkanan had the power to control the earth, to create earthquakes, to melt stone. These are not subtle powers. These are progenitor-level powers. Hallas had the power of Eberron earth. The Lady had the power of Kyber corruption/disease. The dragons watched the War of the Mark with cold fascination. They saw the 12 houses, the stable subroutines organizing to purge the glitch. The Siege of Sharn, the final battle of that war, was a prophetic nexus point. When Hallas and the Lady realized they could not win, they didn't surrender. They unleashed their marks. They cursed the city. They created the depths, the ruins beneath modern Sharn, where the laws of reality are still thin. Now consider the aftermath. The 12 houses won. The aberrant marks were suppressed, though never fully eradicated. The prophecy settled into a new 12-part harmony. But the ghost of the 13th mark remains. Erandi's Val survived. We know this. The dragons suspect it, but they cannot find her. Why? Because she is a lick. She is dead. She has no biological pulse, no breath, and crucially, no active dragon mark. When she became undead, her mark of death went inert. She became invisible to the prophetic radar. The dragons scan for life and potential. They scan for the drift of flesh. Erandi's is no longer flesh. She is bone and magic. She is a blind spot. She is the Lady of the Bleak Signal. From her frozen throne in the Lazar Principalities, the Lick Queen manipulates the world through the blood of Val religion and the order of the Emerald Claw. She is trying to do the impossible. she is trying to reactivate her mark. She believes that if she can achieve godhood, or if she can finding a specific sequence of events, she can force the mark of death to flare to life on her undead skin. If she succeeds, the dragons believe it will be the end of the age. The return of the severed thread would snap the tension that holds the current world together. It might shatter the ring of Cyberies. This brings us to the Cyberies marks. You have heard of these. The great, sprawling marks that cover the entire body. The mark of a true heir. Why do they exist? Why does a mark of making suddenly jump from a small symbol on the arm to a glowing circuit board covering the chest and face? The theory in the Starpeaks is that Cyberies marks are the compensation. Because the mark of death is gone, and because Krya, the 13th moon, is gone, the remaining marks have to carry extra voltage. A Cyberies mark is the system overclocking itself to handle the prophetic load. When a character in your world manifests a Cyberies mark, they are becoming a prophetic anchor. They are being pinned to the map by the progenitors. This person is essential. Do not delete. The dragons treat Cyberies heirs with a mix of reverence and terror. A chamber dragon will often step out of the shadows to offer a Cyberies heir a deal. Come with me. Let me teach you how to use that power. Let me show you the script. They want to control the anchor. Because if a Lord of Dust gets their claws into a Cyberies heir, they can twist the prophecy with terrifying speed. Imagine an heir with the Cyberies mark of scribing. They could speak a word that rewrites the memory of a nation. They could draft a law that becomes physically binding on the minds of the people. This is the high-stakes table. And recently, the threads are fraying again. Since the morning, which we will discuss soon, the incidence of aberrant marks has spiked. People are developing marks that don't fit the mold of the war of the mark. Weird marks. Marks that look like the night sky. Marks that bleed shadow. The dragons are worried that the severed thread is trying to reknit itself. They worry that a new 13th house is forming. Not the house of Val, but something new. Something born of the morning. If you are an adventurer with a strange mark, or if you have found yourself drawn to the mystery of the mark of death, know this. You are walking on the scar tissue of the world. The dragons are watching you, wondering if you are the infection returning or the cure. But the prophecy is not just written in the blood of the living or the stars of the sky. It is written in the bones of the mother. It is written in the rock. The progenitor Eberron herself has a voice. She speaks in earthquakes. She writes in mountain ranges. She whispers in the magma flows of the demon wastes. To understand the full scope of the prophecy, we must look down past our feet into the crust of the planet. In the next section, we will explore the voice of the stone. We will travel to the demon wastes and the Gorodine. We will learn how a geologist reads the future in the strata of a canyon wall, and why the Gashkala orcs believe that the volcano is a warning bell. We are going to listen to the heartbeat of the world. Put your ear to the ground. No, truly. In your mind's eye, I want you to kneel on the stone floor of this observatory. Press your cheek against the cold, unyielding rock. Close your eyes. Can you hear it? It is faint, deeper than the lowest note of a pipe organ, a vibration that rattles your teeth just slightly. Thrum, thrum, thrum. That is the heartbeat of Eberron. We have spent hours looking up at the ring of Cyberes, tracing the frantic dance of the moons. We have looked at the skin of mortals, reading the glowing script of the dragon marks, but we have neglected the largest, loudest, and most permanent page of the prophecy, the world itself. The dragons call this the drift of the stone. While the sky tells us of timing and potential, and the flesh tells us of agency and choice, the earth tells us of consequence and binding. Remember the origin myth. Eberron, the dragon between, did not defeat Kyber by killing him. She defeated him by becoming the cage. She wrapped her body around him, crushing him, suffocating him, turning her scales into the continents and her blood into the oceans. Therefore, every mountain range, every canyon, every ocean trench is a bar in that cage. Geography is not random in this world. It is functional. A geologist from Moorgrave University might tell you that the Ironroot Mountains were formed by tectonic collision. A dragon of the conclave will tell you that the Ironroot Mountains were raised to pin down the arm of the overlord Tul Orshka. To read the drift of the stone is to study the stress fractures of the world. Let us travel in spirit to the place where the earth is most vocal, the place where the ink is still wet, the demon wastes. Imagine a landscape of obsidian and basalt, shattered by constant tremors. The air smells of sulfur and ozone. The sky is bruised with unnatural colors. Here, in the northwest of Corvair, the binding of the overlords is closest to the surface. The central feature of the wastes is the labyrinth. To a mapmaker, it is a confusing tangle of canyons and mesas. But to a prophetic scholar, the labyrinth is a shifting circuit board. The canyons move. A path that was open yesterday is closed today. A spire that stood for 1,000 years collapses into dust in an instant. This is the prophecy fighting against the escape attempts of the Lords of Dust. When a canyon wall slams shut, blocking an army of carrion crawlers, that is Eberron saying, no. That is a physical, if slash then statement, resolving in real time. If the servants of the shadow reach the plains of Eldine, then the stone shall rise to bar their path. The Gosh Kala orcs, the sacred guardians who live in the labyrinth, do not navigate by maps. They navigate by reading the will of the earth. They feel the tremors before they happen. They know that a sudden geyser of magma is not a natural disaster. It is a warning that an ancient evil is stirring beneath that specific spot. But the voice of the stone is not limited to the wastes. It is everywhere. Consider the volcanoes, the fists of Onator in the Emror Holds, the ashen spires. In our world, a volcano erupts due to pressure. In Eberron, pressure is narrative. A volcano is a stress vent for the prophecy. When the tension between the binding of Kyber and the freedom of the surface becomes too great, the earth bleeds fire. The dragons watch the volcanoes of the Emror holds obsessively. They correlate eruptions with political events. History records that on the day King Geralt of Galifar died, the event that sparked the last war, the great volcano Mount Korat smoked for 3 days and 3 nights. The dragons read this sign. The internal pressure of the continent has been released. The unity is broken. The magma of war will flow. If Mount Korat were to erupt violently today, the chamber would panic. It would signify a catastrophic failure of the political containment field. It would mean that the Cold War is about to turn hot. Now, let us speak of the dragon shards. You cannot understand the geology of Eberron without understanding these crystals. They are the physical manifestations of the progenitors. Cybere's shards fall from the sky. They are the golden drift found in Zendrik and the equator. They enhance magic. Kyber shards are found deep underground near pockets of magma. They are dark, veined with midnight blue. They bind. Eberron shards are found in the topsoil, the skin of the world. They are pink and swirling. They regulate. To a miner in the Emror holds, a vein of Eberron shards is a payday. To a dragon, a vein of shards is a sentence. The pattern in which the shards grow is prophetic text. A dragon might spend 50 years studying a single cavern, tracing the lattice of the crystals. "Look here," the dragon might say, pointing a claw at a cluster of pink crystals. "See how the lattice spirals inward. This indicates a period of introspection for the nation above. But here, see this jagged break where a Kyber shard has intruded. This predicts a corruption of the soil. This brings us to the concept of geographic determinism. Why are the major cities where they are? Why is Sharn, the city of towers, located on the hilt of the Dagger River? The common answer is trade. The river is wide. The cliffs are defensible. The prophetic answer is that Sharn sits on a Serenia manifest zone. The zone allows the towers to fly. But why is the zone there? The dragons believe that the progenitor Eberron placed that zone there deliberately to act as a vent of levity. The prophecy needed a place where the laws of gravity, and by extension, the laws of limitation, were weak. It needed a place where mortals could aspire to the heavens. Sharn is a prophetic engine of ambition. Conversely, look at the Mournland, formerly the nation of Sire, now a wall of dead gray mist. Why did the mist stop where it did? Why didn't it consume all of Corvair? Geologists have noted that the borders of the Mournland follow the lines of ancient, deep earth ley lines. It is as if the land itself created a quarantine zone. The drift of stone recognized a fatal error in the program, the magical nuke that destroyed Sire, and immediately erected a firewall. The rivers that border the Mournland, the ancient waterways, acted as the boundaries of the spell. This suggests that the geography of the 5 nations was designed millions of years ago to contain exactly this kind of disaster. It suggests that Eberron knew we would blow ourselves up eventually, and she built the blast walls in advance. Now let's talk about the Underdark of Kyber. This is not just a cave system. This is the enemy's territory. The crust is Eberron the warden. The depths are Kyber the prisoner. The deeper you go, the less the laws of physics apply. The prophecy of the stone becomes twisted here. In the upper crust, a tunnel is a tunnel. In the deep Kyber, a tunnel is a throat. The lords of dust manipulate the geology from below. They try to create blights. A blight is a corrupted patch of land where nothing grows, or where the water turns to poison. This is Kyber trying to push through the skin of Eberron. The dragons monitor these blights. If a blight expands, it means an overlord is waking up. If you are an adventurer and you find a cave where the walls seem to bleed, or where the shadows detach from the stalagmites, you have found a prophetic ulcer. The skin of the world is infected. There is a fascinating theory regarding the tremors of 998 YK. In the current year, seismographs in Zilargo and the Emror holds have been picking up a rhythmic vibration deep in the mantle. It is too regular to be tectonic plates shifting. It has a frequency. Thump, pause, thump, pause. Some dragons of the chamber believe this is the heart of the world beating faster. Adrenaline. Why would a planet feel adrenaline? Because it senses a threat. The Earth is bracing for impact. Is it bracing for the release of an overlord? Or is it bracing for something coming from the sky? Perhaps the return of the lost moon. The gnomes of Zilargo, who are masters of elemental binding and earth magic, are quietly terrified. They have huge listening posts in the Trust's headquarters, ear trumpets pressed against the bedrock. They know that if the Earth decides to shrug, civilization ends. Let's look at one specific, terrifying example of Earth prophecy: the Singing Sierras. Located in the Blade Desert of the Talenta Plains, these are wind-carved rock formations that emit musical tones when the wind blows through them. To the halflings, it is a sacred site. To the dragons, it is an alarm clock. The specific notes played by the wind through those rocks form a harmonic code. When the Sierras sing the chord of C minor for 3 days, the King of Dust shall rise. The dragons actually manipulate the weather in the Talenta Plains to ensure the wind never blows from the exact angle required to play that chord. They are constantly adjusting the airflow, blocking canyons, planting trees, doing everything they can to silence the song. But erosion is patient. The wind wears down the rock. The shape of the flutes changes. Eventually, the rock will erode to the point where the song is inevitable. This is the inevitability of stone. You can delay it, but you cannot stop the mountain from wearing down. Finally, consider the living earth elementals. The Galeb Duer, the earth elementals. These creatures are not just monsters. They are the white blood cells of the land. When a Galeb Duer attacks a mining camp, the miners think it is defending its territory. The prophecy suggests it is defending a seal. The miners were likely about to breach a wall that held back a pocket of demon-tainted gas, or a sleeping horror. The elemental intervened to maintain the structural integrity of the cage. So, as we stand here in the Starpeaks, realizing that the very mountain beneath our feet is a sentence in a book we are barely learning to read, we must ask, who translates this? The dragons fly. They see the patterns from above, but who walks the land? Who listens to the whisper of the root and the groan of the rock? There is a group of mortals who have learned to read the drift of stone better than the dragons. They do not live in towers. They live in the swamps. They live in the deep woods. They are the heirs of the green dragon Vivarok. They are the gatekeepers. In the next section, we will travel to the shadow marches. We will sit by the campfire with the orc druids. We will learn the story of Vivarok, the dragon who turned traitor to her own kind to teach the lesser races how to read the prophecy. We will learn why the druidic interpretation of the prophecy, the Great Balance, differs from the Draconic interpretation. We will learn how to read the signs in the flight of birds and the growth of moss. The rock is solid, but the moss grows over it. The story turns to the green. The air has changed again. We have left the thin, cold atmosphere of the Starpeaks. We have left the dry, sulfurous heat of the demon wastes. The air is now thick. It hangs heavy in your lungs, smelling of wet peat, decaying leaves, and life. A chaotic, teeming, overwhelming life. We are in the shadow marches. Close your eyes and listen to the sounds of the swamp. The chirping of insects that have no names in the common tongue. The splash of a crocodile slipping into the black water. The distant, rhythmic drumming of a hollow log. We are here to meet the other side of the coin. If the Dragons of Argonnessen are the astronomers of the prophecy, watching from their ivory towers, then the beings we are discussing tonight are the field biologists. They are the ones down in the mud, with their hands in the soil, feeling the pulse of the world directly. We are here to talk about the gatekeepers, and to understand them, we must talk about the great traitor, the green dragon Vivarok. In the histories of Argonnessen, Vivarok is a footnote, often mentioned with disdain. She is seen as a radical, a fool who broke the most sacred rule of the conclave. Do not share the secrets of the progenitors with the lesser races, but to the people of Corvair. Whether they know her name or not, Vivarok is the reason the sky hasn't turned to purple glass and the ground hasn't melted into screaming flesh. Travel back in your mind 9,000 years, long before the kingdom of Galifar, long before humanity arrived from Sarlona. Corvair was a wilder place. The Goblin Empire of Dakon was the dominant military power, a civilization of steel and discipline. But Vivarok saw something the Dakoni did not. And crucially, she saw something the Conclave did not. As a green dragon, Vivarok was attuned to the drift of the earth and the drift of life, while her brethren in the chamber were obsessed with the movement of the moons and the high celestial math. Vivarok was watching the moss. She was watching the mutations in the beetles. She felt a sickness rising in the subconscious of the planet. She realized that the prophecy was predicting an invasion, not from the demon wastes and not from the giants of Zendrik, but from Zoriat, the realm of madness. She brought her findings to the conclave. She showed them the patterns. She argued that the alignment of the planes was drifting toward a catastrophic conjunction with the realm of madness. The conclave deliberated. This is the flaw of the dragons. They are immortal. They have infinite time. To them, a deliberation of 50 years is a brief meeting. They analyzed Vivarok's data. They formed subcommittees. They debated the semantic meaning of the word invasion versus incursion. Vivarok realized they would be too slow. She realized that by the time the conclave decided to act, the world would already be lost. So she did the unthinkable. She left. She flew across the Thunder Sea, landing in the Shadow Marches on the western coast of Corvair. She looked for a people she could teach. She needed a race that was tough, adaptable, and deeply connected to the natural world. She found the orcs. Now, you must strip away the modern prejudices you might hold about orcs. Forget the stories of savage raiders. The orcs of the Shadow Marches are the oldest, most disciplined spiritual guardians on the continent. They were the first students. Vivarok did not teach them to throw fireballs. She did not teach them arcane magic, which requires formulas and books. She taught them the old ways. She taught them druidic magic. But this was not the druidism of the Eldin Reaches, of growing big pumpkins and talking to squirrels. This was abjuration druidism. This was the magic of the shield. She taught them that the world Eberron is a living entity. And like any living entity, it has an immune system. She taught the orcs how to be that immune system. She introduced them to a new interpretation of the prophecy. The dragons see the prophecy as a script to be edited. Vivarok taught the orcs to see the prophecy as a great balance. To a gatekeeper, the prophecy is the song of the natural order. When an aberration, a creature from Zoriat, enters the world, it is a discordant note. It is Cancer. It does not belong. The duty of the gatekeeper is not to defeat the enemy in a glorious battle, but to excise the infection and seal the wound. Vivarok taught them to read the signs in the immediate environment. A dragon looks at the moon Zaranter to see if war is coming. A gatekeeper looks at the migration of the sturges. If the sturges are flying in a spiral pattern counterclockwise, it means the dimensional barriers are thinning in the sector. A dragon calculates the conjunction of Furnia. A gatekeeper tastes the water. If the water tastes of metallic ash, it means a seal is leaking. This is tactical prophecy. It is not about the fate of empires in 500 years. It is about the fate of the village tonight. And Vivarok's foresight was perfect. The invasion happened. The Daelker, the lords of madness, broke through from Zoriat. They brought with them armies of mind flayers, beholders, and twisted nightmares that defied physics. The empire of Dakon fought them with steel and discipline. The goblins were heroes. They held the line with military might. But you cannot stab madness. You cannot formation march against a color that burns your mind. The Draconic were winning the battles, but they were losing the war. Their minds were being corrupted. It was the gatekeepers who saved the world. While the goblin armies fought the physical forms of the Daelkyr, the orc druids fought the metaphysical battle. They used the magic Viverok, taught them to create the dimensional seals. These are the most important prophetic artifacts on the face of Eberron. A dimensional seal is not just a rock, it is a massive, often house-sized menhir, carved with runes that hurt the eyes to look at. They are anchors. They pinned the reality of Eberron down, preventing it from merging with Zoriat. The gatekeepers traveled to the sites where the prophecy showed the membrane was weakest, the nodes of madness, and they slammed these seals into the earth. They poured their own life force into them, and it worked. They severed the connection to Zoriat. The Daelkyr were trapped on Eberron, cut off from their home plane, and then bound deep in Khyber by the seals. Viverok died, or passed into the Draconic prophecy, before the war was fully won, but her students, the first gatekeepers, carried on. Today, the gatekeepers are a shadow of what they once were, but they are still out there in the swamps, in the deep forests of the Eldin reaches, watching. Let us look at how they read the prophecy today. They do not use the Draconic orrery. They use the circle of stone. If you visit a gatekeeper grove, you will see stones arranged in complex spirals. These stones are attuned to the Earth's magnetic and magical fields. By watching how shadows fall on the stones, or how moss grows on specific faces of the rock, the druids can read the pressure of the imprisoned Daelkyr. The gatekeepers believe in the cycle of the turn. They believe the prophecy is cyclical. That which was bound shall loosen. That which was loose shall be bound. They are currently terrified. Why? Because the seals are failing. 10,000 years is a long time for a rock to hold back a god of madness. The seals are eroding, not just physically, but magically. The prophecy is shifting. The if statements that held the Daelkyr in check are becoming when statements. When the shadow of the dragon passes over the broken stone, the mind of the deep shall wake. The gatekeepers are seeing signs of Belashra, the Lord of Eyes, and Dirn, the Corrupter, stirring in the deep. This brings us to a conflict of philosophy between the dragons and the gatekeepers. The dragons of the chamber view the Daelkyr as outside context problems. The Daelkyr are not part of the original creation myth. Cyberes, Eberron, Khyber, they are invaders. Therefore, the dragons struggle to fit them into the prophecy. The Draconic prophecy deals with the three progenitors. It glitches when it tries to account for Zoriat. The gatekeepers, however, have incorporated the Daelkyr into their reading. They view the Daelkyr as the ultimate test of the great balance. To a gatekeeper, an adventurer is a potential recruit. They don't care about your bloodline. They don't care if you have a dragon mark. In fact, they are often suspicious of dragon marks, seeing them as unstable mutations. They care about your spirit. Can you stand before a creature that has tentacled eyes and not lose your mind? Can you hold the line? If you meet an orc druid in the marches, they might offer you a strange, bitter tea. Drink it. It is a test. If you can stomach it, they might show you the weeping trees. In the shadow marches, there are trees that bleed black sap. This is a prophetic sign. The gatekeepers read the flow of the sap. If it flows thick and slow, the binding is holding. If it runs thin and red, Deern is active. There is a tragedy to the gatekeepers. They are the forgotten saviors. The bards sing of the heroes of Galifar. The historians write of the Goblin Empire. But few record the names of the orcs who stood in a circle, chanting for days without sleep, dying of exhaustion to keep a stone from cracking, so that the rest of the world could sleep soundly. Viverak knew this would happen. She told them, "You will be the roots, unseen, trodden upon, but holding the tree upright." But there is a new development, a connection between the two defectors. We spoke earlier of Erandi's fall, the mixed blood lick. Some whispers in the deep lore suggest that Viverak didn't just teach the orcs. Some say she left a final, secret prophecy, the prophecy of the green. It hints that the only way to permanently defeat the Daelkyr, not just bind them, but destroy them, lies in the union of the dragon and the beast. Viverak was a dragon. The orcs were the beast in the eyes of the arrogant. Is it possible that Viverak foresaw the creation of the hybrid, like Erandi's fall, not as a threat, but as a savior? Did the gatekeepers fail to protect Val because they didn't know? Or did the dragons destroy Val because they feared she was the fulfillment of Viverak's final, radical theory? The gatekeepers today are looking for the Horizon Walker, a figure mentioned in their oral traditions. Someone who can walk between the madness and the reality without being tainted. Someone who can reseed the seals. If you are a ranger, a druid, or a barbarian in Eberron, you feel this pull. You might find yourself stumbling upon a moss-covered stone in the woods that hums when you touch it. You are brushing against the legacy of Viverak. The dragons look down from the stars. The gatekeepers look up from the roots, but both of them are staring at the same terrifying middle ground. They are both looking at the morning. The day of mourning was the moment the prophecy screamed. It was the moment the board was flipped. The dragons didn't predict it. The gatekeepers didn't foresee it. Or did they? In the next section, we will tackle the greatest mystery of the modern age. The mourning, a glitch in the code. We will analyze the destruction of Sire not as a war crime, but as a prophetic event. Was it the release of an overlord? Was it a Daelkyr weapon? Or was it the prophecy itself crashing due to a paradox? We will look at the glowing mists through the eyes of the conclave and see their terror. The swamp is quiet now. The chant has faded, but the stone is still warm. We have arrived at the scar. The air in the observatory is no longer cold. It is stagnant. It feels dead. Even the great orrery seems to hesitate in its rotation, the gears grinding against a friction that wasn't there before. We have spoken of the Draconic prophecy as a map, a script, a song, and a computer. We have established that for millions of years, the prophecy was the absolute law of cause and effect. It was complex, yes, but it was functional. If you dropped a stone, it fell. If you killed a king, the kingdom bled. The The inputs matched the outputs. But on the 20th of Olarun, in the year 994 YK, the machine stopped. The day of mourning. To the people of the 5 nations, this was a tragedy of war. A magical weapon gone wrong, a judgment from the gods. To the Dragons of Argonnessen, it was something far worse. It was a system failure. Imagine you are a great worm sitting in the conclave on that day. You are watching the readouts of the prophecy. You see the threads of the nation of Sire. You see millions of potential futures for the jewel of Galifar. In one thread, Queen Danel wins the war. In another, she negotiates a peace. In a third, she is assassinated. The tapestry is rich and vibrant. And then, in a single heartbeat, white noise. Not a thread snapping. Not a thread turning black. The threads simply ceased to exist. The dragons didn't just lose sight of Sire. They lost the ability to see it. The dead gray mist that covers the Mournland is not just a magical fog. It is a prophetic dead zone. When a dragon looks at the Mournland today, they see nothing. No ifs, no thens, just a void. The prophecy, which covers every inch of the material plane, stops at the borders of the mist. This has terrified the conclave more than the return of any overlord. An overlord is a known variable. The mourning is an unknown. Let us dissect the theories of the mourning through the lens of the prophecy. We are not looking for the name of the wizard who cast the spell. We are looking for the metaphysical reason why the world allowed a hole to be punched in its side. Theory 1. The prophetic paradox, the divide by zero. This is the prevailing theory among the scribes of the chamber. They believe that the last war created a logical loop that the prophecy could not resolve. Consider the immense weight of destiny placed on the throne of Galifar. The prophecy had spent 1,000 years building the kingdom of Galifar as a stabilizing force. Then, the succession broke. 5 nations spent a century trying to claim a destiny that was meant for one. The theory posits that 2 mutually exclusive absolute truths were triggered simultaneously on the day of mourning. Perhaps one thread of the prophecy stated, "The crown of Galifar must reside in Sire," and another thread, powered by the actions of the other nations, stated, "Sire must be destroyed for the age of war to end." When these 2 irresistible forces met, the must exist and the must perish, the logic of reality snapped. The universe could not calculate the outcome. It encountered a paradox. And what does a computer do when it encounters a fatal error? It crashes. It dumps the memory. The mourning, in this view, is a blue screen of death. The gray mists are the corrupted data left behind after the system crash. The reality inside the Mournland is twisted because the laws of physics and magic are rebooting in that sector. Theory 2. The hubris of the maker, the violation of Erv. We spoke of the moon air, the anvil, the variable of making. House Cannith is the primary agent of air. In the final years of the war, House Cannith was pushing the boundaries of creation. The Warforged, the creation forges. They were creating life from cold matter. Some dragons argue that Cannith attempted a ritual, perhaps unknowingly, that encroached on the domain of Cyberes himself. The power to create a soul belongs to the dragon above. By industrializing the creation of souls, the Warforged, Cannith may have triggered an automated defense mechanism in the prophecy. The if statement might have been ancient and forgotten. If the children of the dust attempt to become the fathers of the soul, then the forge shall consume the fire. This theory suggests the morning was a containment protocol. The world saw a localized infection, a runaway magical singularity in the Cannith labs deep within Sire, and it cauterized the wound. It deleted the nation to stop the infection from spreading to the rest of the planet. This explains why the mists stopped exactly where they did. It was a controlled demolition. Theory 3. The release of the 14th. We know of 13 overlords who are most active, but there are roughly 30 bound in Kyber. Some lore suggests that a specific overlord, Tul Orshka, the truth in the darkness, is bound beneath the region that was Sire. Tul Orshka is the overlord of madness and secrets. The morning shares many thematic elements with her sphere of influence: the warping of flesh, the living spells, the fact that the dead do not decay, but remain preserved as statues. If the morning was the release of an overlord, why didn't she conquer the world? Because the release went wrong. Perhaps the Lords of Dust botched the ritual. Or perhaps the chamber intervened at the very last second. The result was a partial release. The overlord was unbound, but trapped within her own explosive energy. The Mournland is the overlord, expanded to the size of a nation, churning and boiling, unable to fully manifest, but unable to be banished. If this is true, then every time an adventurer walks into the Mournland, they are walking inside the body of a demon god. The blindness of Argonnessen. Why didn't the dragons stop it? They watch everything. The answer lies in the shadow of the war. The last war was a century of chaos. The prophecy was in a state of high flux. The sheer volume of death and choice generated during the war created a fog of probability. The Lords of Dust likely used this fog to mask their preparations. They hid the morning thread underneath millions of war threads. By the time the dragons noticed the specific pattern that led to 994 YK, the tumble had already started. This has caused a crisis of faith in the Conclave. The dragons failed. They failed their primary duty. The Watchers were watching, but they didn't see. This has led to the current Cold War within the chamber. The dragons are paranoid. They suspect that the morning was a test run. If you can blind the prophecy in one nation, can you blind it in the whole world? The new variables, the living spells, and the Lord of Blades. The morning didn't just destroy, it created, and what it created defies the Draconic prophecy. Living spells. A fireball is a temporary effect. It explodes and is gone. In the Mournland, a fireball doesn't fade. It remembers. It gains a rudimentary consciousness. It hunts. The prophecy has no code for sentient magic. It accounts for creatures and objects. A spell that thinks is a violation of the syntax. To the dragons, living spells are glitch entities. They are errors in the code that have become hostile. The Lord of Blades. Who is he? A warforged messiah? A madman? Bulwark, the former bodyguard of King Borinal. To the prophecy, he is a ghost. Because he resides in the Mournland, he is invisible to the dragons scrying. He is building an army in the blind spot. The dragons are terrified that the Lord of Blades is the avatar of the glitch. If he marches out of the mist, he brings the chaos with him. He is a variable that cannot be calculated because his origin point, the morning, is null data. If the man of steel rises from the gray fog, the calculations of the age end. There is a terrifying possibility that the Lord of Blades is the only being on Eberron who is truly free. Everyone else is bound by the prophecy. You, me, the kings, the dragons, we are all moving along paths of probability. But the Lord of Blades was born in the void. He might be the only creature with true, unscripted free will, and that makes him the most dangerous thing in existence. The expanding glitch. Recent reports from the field, from the brave or foolish scavengers who enter the mists, suggest that the morning is evolving. The borders of the mist are not perfectly stable. They breathe. Sometimes they expand a few feet. Sometimes they recede. But there are reports of mini mornings. Small pockets of dead gray mist appearing in other parts of Corvair, miles away from the border. A cellar in Breland suddenly fills with gray fog, and the rats inside turn to stone. A well in Aundair dries up and starts whispering in the voice of the dead. The dragons fear that the crash is spreading. The integrity of reality is degrading. The prophecy is unraveling. This brings us to the Draconic reaction plan. What are they doing about it? They are frantically trying to patch the code. The chamber is working overtime to strengthen the stability threads in the remaining 4 nations. They are desperate to prevent another war. They believe that if the 5 nations go to war again, the stress on reality will be too much. The morning will expand. The blue screen will cover the entire continent. This is why the Treaty of Thronehold holds. Not because humans are tired of war. Humans are never tired of war. But because invisible draconic agents are threatening, bribing, and killing anyone who tries to start the conflict again. They are buying time. They are trying to figure out how to reboot the system without deleting the world. And they are looking for the catalyst. They believe there is a specific item or person at the center of the morning, the Patient Zero. If they can find Patient Zero, they can reverse the effect. Is it the glowing chasm? Is it the glass ruins of Metrol? Is it the last heir of House Cannith who vanished in the mists? If you are an adventurer exploring the Mournland, know this. You are not just looking for loot. You are walking through the wreckage of the cosmic operating system. If you find something strange, a clock that runs backward, a mirror that shows a different world, a warforged that speaks with the voice of a dragon, do not touch it, Or do, because maybe, just maybe, you are the random variable that fixes the glitch. The prophecy is broken in the east, but the gears are still turning in the west. The game is not over. It has just entered sudden death. We have one final section to cover. We must look forward. We have looked at the history, the mechanics, the players, and the glitch. Now, we must look at the end game. In the next section, we will discuss the end of the age future patterns. We will look at the currently active prophetic threads in 998 YK. What does the prophecy say about the return of the Queen of Death? What does it say about the breaking of the Ring of Cyberes? And ultimately, we will ask the question, can the prophecy be defied? Can you, the mortal, pick up the pen and write your own ending? The mist is clearing from our minds, but the gray wall remains on the horizon. Let us turn our eyes to the future before it is too late. The fire in the hearth has burned down to embers. The deep blue of the night sky outside the observatory dome is beginning to pale. A faint line of violet light is bleeding over the edge of the Ironroot Mountains in the east. Dawn is coming. We have spent the night dissecting the anatomy of the world. We have looked at the bones, the blood, the skin, and the soul of Eberron. We have charted the movements of the moons and the machinations of the dragons. We have stared into the abyss of the morning. Now, as the light returns, we must ask the final question, the question that keeps the great worms of the conclave awake in their cavernous lairs. Where does it end? The Draconic prophecy is not infinite. It is a story, and every story has a final page. The dragons believe that we are currently living in the end of an age. Not necessarily the end of the world, though that is a distinct possibility, but the end of a specific cycle of history. The if/then statements are running out of thens. The options are narrowing. The probability cone is collapsing toward a singularity. In the year 998 YK, the prophecy is vibrating with a frequency that hasn't been felt since the Age of Demons. The board is set. The pieces are moving. Let us look at the three potential endgame scenarios that the chamber is currently tracking. These are the three dooms. The first doom, the rise of the daughter. Deep in the northern wastes of Argonnessen, there is a location known as the Pit of Five Sorrows. It is a canyon so deep that the sun never touches the bottom. It is guarded by the flight of the Wardens of the Wood, a sect of green dragons, and watched constantly by the light of Cyberes. Bound beneath this pit is Tiamat. In the lore of other worlds, Tiamat is a god. In Eberron, she is the daughter of Kyber. She is the overlord of dragons. Her power is the corruption of the draconic soul. The prophecy contains a terrified stanza known as the Verse of Many Colors. When the five heads sing the song of unmaking, the children of the sky shall turn upon the Father. The dragons fear this above all else. They fear that Tiamat will not just rise and breathe fire. They fear she will hijack the collective consciousness of dragonkind. If Tiamat is released, the chamber, the conclave, the light of Cyberes, they will all fall. their minds will be twisted. They will become the agents of the very evil they have spent 100,000 years fighting. Imagine thousands of dragons, the most powerful spellcasters on the planet, suddenly united in a crusade to destroy civilization. The signs of her release are subtle. A chromatic dragon born with metallic scales. A metallic dragon suddenly succumbing to greed or rage without cause. The prophecy suggests that Tiamat's release is linked to the Orb of Dragonkind, an artifact thought to be a myth, but which the chamber frantically searches for. If you hear rumors of dragons acting strangely, of ancient alliances breaking, know that the daughter is pulling on her chains. The second doom, the breaking of the ring. Look up at the ring of Cyberes one last time. It is fading now in the morning light, but it is still there, the golden halo of the world. It is the source of all arcane magic. It is the shield that keeps the universe at bay. But it is broken once before. The giants broke the moon Krya. The prophecy hints at a shattered sky. The golden band shall snap, and the rain of fire shall cleanse the unworthy. There are forces in the world, nihilistic cults, extreme factions of the Lords of Dust, and perhaps even the mad genius of a Cyberes heir pushed too far, who seek to break the ring. Why? Because the ring limits the power of mortals. It regulates the flow of magic. If you break the ring, you uncork the bottle. For a brief moment, every spellcaster on Eberron would have the power of a god. And then the world would burn. The shards of the ring would rain down like meteors. The dragon shards we prize for our airships and lightning rails would become bullets from the heavens. The dragons of the chamber monitor the skyports, the high mountain peaks where the ring is closest to the earth. They watch for rituals that seek to pull down the stars. If the ring breaks, the Draconic prophecy ends because the screen upon which it is projected has been destroyed. The third doom, the stagnation of dreams. This is the subtle death, the death of entropy. This threat comes from Dal Quor, the region of dreams, and the Quarry. The Quarry are immortal spirits, but their immortality is tied to the current age of Dal Quor. The prophecy dictates that eventually the age of Dal Quor must turn. The current Quarry will be wiped away, reborn as something new, something light. The Quarry do not want to die. They want to preserve the dreaming dark forever. They are working to halt the prophecy. They don't want to release an overlord too chaotic. They don't want to destroy the world, no one left to dream. They want stasis. They are building the Hanbalani altas, the monoliths, in the distant continent of Sarlona. These monoliths are psychic anchors. They are trying to drag Dal Quor back into alignment with Eberron, but permanently locked in a specific phase. If they succeed, nothing will ever change again. No new inventions, no social progress, no revolution. The world will become a perfectly ordered, perfectly stagnant ant farm ruled by the inspired. The prophecy will simply stop generating new lines. The book will close, unfinished. This is the war of free will versus determinism. And this is where you come in. The dragons read the prophecy. The lords of dust manipulate the prophecy. The quarry try to freeze the prophecy. But you, the adventurer, the mortal, you are the variable. There is a concept in the deepest, most forbidden lore of the Library of Kornberg called the Zendrick Blank. It refers to a phenomenon where the prophecy simply fails to account for the actions of a specific individual. Maybe it's because you were born in the Mournland. Maybe it's because you carry an aberrant mark that defies the 12. Maybe it's simply because the progenitor Eberron loves a surprise. The dragons are terrified of you. They look at your timeline and they see a blur. They see if slash then statements that don't resolve. If the hero enters the dungeon, then data corrupted. This is why they watch you. This is why they hire you. They are trying to figure out if you are a tool to be used or a glitch to be deleted. But there is hope in the glitch. The prophecy was written by the progenitors, but they are dead or sleeping. The world has grown beyond them. The future of Eberron is no longer written in the stars. It is being written in the mud, in the blood, and in the choices of people who refuse to do what the stars tell them to do. You have the power to break the cycle. You can find a way to bind the overlords that doesn't require a sacrifice. You can find a way to heal the Mournland that the dragons haven't thought of. You can unite the nations not by conquest, but by empathy, a force the prophecy struggles to calculate. As you leave the Starpeaks today, as you walk back down the 1,000 steps into the world below, carry this knowledge with you. The world is a machine, yes. A massive, complex, magical computer. But you are not a cog. You are the operator. The moons are just rocks. The stars are just fire. The prophecy is just words, and words can be rewritten. Go to Sharn and climb the towers. Go to Zendrick and explore the ruins. Go to the demon wastes and stare down the darkness. The great game is waiting for its final player, and the dragons are holding their breath to see what move you will make. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the archives. It has been a long night, but a necessary one. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the code of reality, if you found value in the secrets we have uncovered, please consider leaving a like on the record. It helps the signal reach others who are seeking the truth. And if you wish to be notified when we open the archives again, perhaps to discuss the lost magic of the giants, or the true nature of the Warforged souls, subscribe to the channel and ring the bell. The prophecy is always shifting. Don't miss the next verse. Until then, keep watching the sky and trust no one who claims to know your destiny. Farewell.